Welcome to the DMZ, a place to practice good faith rhetoric, not just farm gotchas and dunks. We use structure to cultivate conversations where you have to stop and listen to the other person, even if it is just to find the flaws in what they are saying. Please check your weapons at the door, take notes, and attack the belief, not the believer. After each debate, there will be a free link to where you can go to vote on which side you believe made the most compelling case. So, sit back, relax, and cast those votes. This is the DMZ. Our first debate of the night. Once again, this is going to be our new showcase format. We have two debates tonight. We have two returning debaters here to the DMZ. We've got on the affirmative, Testicle Johnsons, which I guess I'm going to change the color of your name since you are... It's on a white background. How does green sound? That's a little better. And we have Mr. Hammer on the negative. This is a grudge match. The two of them actually called each other out. I don't even know for sure which one of y'all started that little beef, but either way, this has been cooking for a couple of weeks now, so they should be perfectly well prepped. Testicles already submitted any and all reference material that he would like to use. If you have any reference material that you would like to use, Hammer, just go ahead and hit me with a DM. I will be able to pull it up live on stream anytime that I am pulling up a reference, or if somebody asks for a fact check during this, I will be able to stop the time so that we can go ahead and get right into it, and it's not going to cost you guys. You're not going to be penalized for it. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and give both of y'all a couple moments here to introduce yourselves. Testicles, tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you.
Hello, audience. I am Testicle Johnson. I'm kind of a nobody. I got a Twitter account you could follow if you want, but I don't really post on there much. I kind of vacillate between like some left wing, right wing spaces, some gaming spaces. I just kind of hang out, and I like to have conversations.
Very cool. And Mr. Hammer, I'm going to go ahead and drop Hammer's link into the chat here. Hammer, would you please tell the folks who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you?
Hey, I'm Hammer. I do a little stream. I mostly play video games on my own stream, but I do talk about politics, especially when I go on other panels. So if you want to come watch me play League or start a fight with me, then I am at MR Hammer at Twitch.tv.
All righty then. So you are coming through pretty quiet there, Hammer. Can you say a few more words for me, buddy?
Yeah, a bit quiet for me as well.
Hello, testing. I'll turn up my my microphone volume. I was on someone else's stream and they said I was too loud. So
Oh no, that's good.
Yeah, that's perfect right there. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And then Testies, if I can hear a few more words from you, just so I can make sure I've got you balanced.
Yeah, just testing. I'm using like a $30 microphone. Somehow it hasn't broken on me yet, so.
Perfect. Yeah, $30 microphone. Hey man, gets it done. So, all right, fantastic. So those are your debaters tonight. We are going to be debating whether or not America should increase its education standards and hold kids back more often. Again, this is our showcase series, so we are not going to have judges. The times are basically doubled, and all of the questions are going to come from the audience, and so is the decision. So make sure you're paying attention, everybody out there. Take notes. If you have questions, throw a couple bucks in the tip jar. We'll put that into the end, and we'll give them the questions after their closing arguments while you guys are voting. So if you all have no further questions, we're going to jump right into it. I've got 5 minutes on the clock for opening. I do understand you do not need to use all of it, but feel free to use as much as you'd like. Testicles, go ahead and start us off, sir. 5 minutes on the clock, and I'll start it up when you start to talk.
Sure. So, welcome, audience. I'm going to take my sweet time here a little bit. I understand we don't have to use the full 5 minutes, but you know, we're not in a rush, so we're just having a conversation, right? So, the prompt here is that the United States should raise education standards and hold students back more often. when they fail to meet core academic benchmarks. So the basic idea is simple. Promotion should mean readiness. A child shouldn't move forward just because the calendar year changed. If a student can't read, write, or do math at the needed level for the next grade, then passing them along might feel kinder in the moment, but it's not kindness. It just pushes the problem down the road, where it gets harder to fix. And this matters because school isn't just about report cards. It affects life outcomes. People without a high school diploma face worse job prospects, lower wages, higher poverty risk, and worse health outcomes. A 2016 study in the Journal of Adolescent Health found that the high school dropouts were far more likely than graduates to face serious negative outcomes by young adulthood. This includes incarceration, being fired, and relying on public assistance. So when schools move students forward without real mastery of what they're being taught, they're not just affecting their grades, they're negatively affecting both the individual and society. The evidence also suggests that America is already confusing credentials with competence. The Fordham Institute reported that from 1998 to 2016, the average high school GPA rose from 3.27 to 3.38. So that sounds positive, right? And the share of the SAT takers with A range grades rose from 39% to 47%. Again, sounds great. But during that same time period, the average SAT scores fell from 1026 to 1002. So grades went up while an external measure of performance went down. I think this shows a clear watering down of the standards, that people are being sort of shuffled along here. The reason that's a problem is we're telling students that they're succeeding, while nationally proficiency data says that too many aren't mastering the basics. In the 2024 NAEP results, only 22% of American 12th graders were proficient in math, and only 35% were proficient in reading. We're talking about grade 12 here. That's not just an education issue, it's a workforce issue, a poverty issue, and a national competitiveness issue. My opponents might argue that maybe holding students back doesn't always improve outcomes, but I'm not defending retention as a punishment. And when I say retention, I mean holding students back. I'm defending standards-based promotion. Identify problems early, provide tutoring, summer school, parent notification, targeted reading, and math support, and only hold them back when they still fail the essential benchmarks. Early intervention matters. The Annie E. Casey Foundation's Double Jeopardy report found that students who can't read proficiently by third grade are far more likely to drop out later. But the answer isn't automatic promotion. Research on Indiana's third grade retention policy found that retaining students improved substantially in English and math, with gains lasting into middle school with no evidence of worse attendance or discipline. So that's the model. You intervene early, you remediate aggressively, and you make the promotion meaningful. The goal isn't to fail more students. The goal is to stop lying to them and selling them short. Social promotion only delays the future failure. It doesn't prevent it. Higher standards are not a punishment. They're a promise that when the school says a student is ready, they should actually mean something. I will see the rest of my time.
All right. So, Hammer, it is now 5 minutes on the clock for you. You can use this as cross-examination or you can use this for rebuttal. It is ultimately your time to use as you see fit and you control. So I'll start the clock when you start to talk, sir.
Sure. So the first thing that I want to ask or say to Testy is to recognize that he misquoted the topic of the debate. So you said that the topic of the debate is to increase standards and hold kids back more when they don't follow certain benchmarks. That last part is something you added, okay? It is only that we should increase standards and hold back kids more. In America, we can already hold students back if they fail basic benchmarks, right?
I agree. Sorry, I wasn't sure if there's a question coming in there, but yes, I will agree with you so far.
Right. Okay. So saying that because the way that you framed the topic of the debate kind of assumes that we don't hold students back when they repeatedly fail benchmarks, which is not the case, right? Retention is still a thing that exists in America. Um, in fact, I would say that the position that you would have to take is not only are we talking about kids who are failing benchmarks, but we would increase the benchmarks so that more students would be failing them in order to justify holding them back, right?
No, I think that's a little bit backwards. And so I will say, and sure, fair enough. I did add this little, I guess, addendum onto the end of the prompt there. I guess what my position is, just to be crystal clear, is that I believe that if the education standards are raised, then there would be no reason to hold students back. So for me, it's a conditional type of thing. There would be no reason to hold students back uh, if the standards were raised, if they were doing fine, right? Would you agree with that?
Well, no, I mean, raising the standards means like this is the amount of this is the amount you need to be proficient in order to pass your grade. It seems like
Well,
you're talking about like increasing the
that's not
quality
raising
of
a standard.
education. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Well, so no, but so you said, so sorry, if I could reiterate what you just said. You said that if they were meeting certain benchmarks, then that could you repeat that? Maybe I misheard.
Right. So, um, what you would have to propose is that we increase the standards of benchmarks, meaning we would require more for them to pass the classes in order to justify holding them back more often.
Well, so education standards are not simply just benchmarks, right? Like it's not just a test with a number or grade attached to it. This it would be pretty encompassing. Some of the things I mentioned, like perhaps getting parents involved, tutoring, maybe summer school. All of these things are part of an education standard, in my opinion, and would also
Um,
contribute to when we're talking about raising it.
so specifically, when we're talking about increasing standards, that doesn't mean this is the one of the things I was going to get to in my opening. That doesn't mean improving the quality of education, which is something that everyone agrees with. What that means is requiring more for students in order to pass them and in order to let them continue on to the next grade.
I understand, I guess maybe the hair that you're splitting, and I would consider it splitting a hair. Um, like I guess as just on a matter of face value, I could maybe accept that. But when I'm speaking of raising the education standards, I'm not saying raise it to something that is unattainable or something that's out of reach. I think that that would be counterproductive.
Sure.
I would never advocate for something like that. So I feel like it is part and parcel. Like if we're saying we are going to improve the quality of education, I feel like the standard of education rises. I guess in tandem. I
You
don't
think
see how
that
you can separate one from the other.
you think inherently saying like increasing the requirement again, all that you're proposing is to increase the standards and therefore increases the requirements of students. Okay, and you think that
Well, I feel like you're
necessarily that
assigning that to me,
our
but
quality
I
of
don't think.
that's the
So,
topic, right?
so but
When
we
we talk about standards, we're talking about the standards that the students must meet, not the schools.
so education standards to me is holistic. This would be encompassing. This would be between students, teachers, schools, government. Like that's how the standard is created. It's not just like the students are the standard. I don't quite understand where you're coming from with this.
The standard, so again, like standards are like limitations of how much you are willing to accept, right? And that's when we're talking
I
about holding students back.
I wouldn't call them necessarily a limitation. I would say bare minimum. When we talk about standard, it is
Exactly.
yeah, bare minimum requirement. So
Right?
sure,
Or
sure.
students. On the topic of holding students back, then we're talking about the standard that we place on students.
Right. And so with the second half of the prompt here with holding students back, one of the things I mentioned was early intervention. But I need to stress that holding students back shouldn't be seen as like a punitive thing. Like again, because I am tying these two together, there is no reason to hold students back if their performance is good. So that doesn't quite follow, right? So you can't, yeah, you can't. I don't feel like we can cleanly decouple these things.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to you now, Hammer. 5 minutes uninterrupted for your opening. I'll start it up when you're ready.
Okay, so for my opening, I'm going to repeat some of the things that I went over in the cross examination, which is the topic of this debate is whether or not we should increase standards, specifically in this context. That means the standards that we apply to students, and therefore hold students back. Holding students back is not the solution that we need it to be, right? We all agree that there is some lack in the American education system and in the students that are coming out of it. But holding students back does not necessarily increase overall the overall quality of the students that are coming out. This does not assume that the schools themselves will have higher quality education. This is one solution for creating better students, and I don't think this will work at all. I link something to horseradish, but I mean, very obviously, if you hold students back more often, those students are more likely to then drop out. And my opponent for me referenced so many ways in which a student dropping out is a negative outcome for the student and for everyone else involved. Um, uh, Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Another so the next topic, sorry, I was going to say something and I forgot it. But the next topic is that it is a little bit ironic that we ask for high school students to have a especially large or especially quality education when our school system is not really designed. The issues with our school system are systemic and can't be solved with more education. Um, there's actually from the people who originally created the high school system, there are quotes that say they intentionally designed it like a factory. The point of a school, based on its structure, is to get students to be obedient and to be consistent in their work. Right? It is not in the actual things that they learn. A quote from this is Elwood Cubbertley, a Stanford education professor, on his doctorate dissertation, who is in favor of this school-like factory design, said that our schools are, in a sense, factories in which the raw products children are to be shaped and fashioned into products to meet the various demands of life. Um, so this is what schools do, and this is what even the students that we see that are maybe not the most well read, who aren't reading at the highest college levels, this is what we need to them to be able to do once they get out of high school. Uh, they need to be able to consistently go to a facility, do their work for a certain amount of time, and not get into severe trouble that would get them, say, expelled, right? Something like a higher math skill or a higher reading advanced level is only required for college graduates, and that is reflected in the type of work that we give to those people. We don't give any kind of job that requires high reading level or advanced math skills to someone with a college or with a high school education. That is just not the reality. And I cede my time.
We're going to go ahead and go back
Uh,
over. Yeah, I was about to
oh,
say
sorry.
five. No, so 5 minutes is on the clock now for your cross and or rebuttal. I'll start it up when you start to talk, sir.
Sure. I'll probably do a little bit of both. So I guess just to kind of address some things that were said there towards the end. Something about going to a facility, making sure that you stay out of trouble. It sounds a lot like school and maybe working a job have some parallels. That you need to be able to have some minimum standards to be able to function within society. Hammer is correct in terms of I guess, the Prussian model of schooling. I find it a little bit bleak to mention that it's this, it's this creating of factory workers. But just to pick your brain, I guess, a little bit, Hammer, just so I don't go on go on a second opening or another monologue. So, just to ask you plainly, so if a student is not doing well in class, or I guess their proficiency is not there, let's just say math, they're not great at math. Um, then what would be your proposed solution? And the options, I guess, that you could have would be, would you, or I guess the way I'm asking is, would you still advance them? Like, what is your minimum standard?
My minimum standard would be like so for any given class, I would say if you can consistently do the basics of the class, right? So if you're in, say,
Would you say a
geometry,
minimum
and
standard?
yeah, there are minimum standards. There are currently minimum standards,
Okay.
right? So what we're talking about is whether or not we would increase those, right?
Right. So I'm
So
asking for a student that's falling behind. So they're not meeting a standard to begin with, right?
So if they're I mean if the current if the current standards, if they're absolutely failing and they have no comprehension of the topic, they would probably already in the system be held back or failed. Um
But would you think they should be?
I
Like, is that
mean
the
I would
appropriate action?
I would say yeah, maybe the current standards are probably acceptable if it's like an absolute failure.
Okay. So, I mean, that's fair. And I would say that if there were also a higher standard, I mean, I feel like it just sort of follows logically. The same thing would apply. So, I mean, that's
Well,
totally fine.
well, if we're asking for a higher standard, then we would ask for more than basic understanding of the topic. We would ask for like an intimate understanding of the topic.
Right, and sure. So, and then I guess for my next question is, so yeah, if you see that there is a student struggling, you would agree that there should be some form of intervention or I guess remediation. This could be tutoring, maybe staying after class, maybe summer school, things of that nature, just to try supplementary, I guess, things to try and help them improve.
I don't want to be a dick, but I think that that falls outside of the discussion because you can recommend those things, but those are different recommendations than just, holding a student back.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to get more of a holistic idea. And what I would say, because, and I guess maybe we will fight on this in the open, is because I feel like you're trying to have a very narrow definition when we're talking about raising the education standard. Because I would still propose that I think that having teachers available to help students is a sign, or is, I guess, part of the process that is raising an education standards, is giving students the resources that they need to succeed. So I don't, because I guess in a vacuum, I don't understand how you would expect students to do better without resources. And so the resources I feel like become a part of the conversation.
Well, that's kind of the issue is like I mean everyone, literally everyone agrees that increasing the quality of education is positive, like we should do that. But again, this is asking for a specific solution within the current system that we should just be allowed to hold students back more often given their current
I feel like
situation.
you keep separating these two parts of the statement because again, raising the education standard,
This
like if the education standards, if all of the students, let's just say by some miracle, all the students were hitting the education standard, do you think there would be any reason to ever hold a student back? And you've also agreed that if they are not meeting a standard, that they should be held back. Even it's a stopgap, right? It's like, or it's not a stop, it's a backstop. It's sort of a final thing. We're saying this is more detrimental to let you continue because you're going to fall further behind if we were to advance you. Is that like, I'm not trying to gish gallop, but does all of that sort of follow?
Yeah, so what is your question again? I feel like you
Well,
started that with a question.
yeah, no, fair enough. I don't even know if I necessarily had one in there, but I guess just I guess because we're focusing now heavily on like the raising of the standards. So one of the stats I brought up, this is from the NEA results, and I will find this link for Horse in just a moment. It said only 22% of American grade 12, this is in 2024, only 22% of American 12th graders, not like they're young, 12th graders were proficient in math, and only 35% were proficient in reading. So they are well below where they should be. So when I think where we're getting crossed is when I'm saying raise the standard. I'm not saying they're already doing poorly. Let's make it more unattainable for them. I think that part of the education system when we're talking about raising standards is raising those students up to meet these standards because it can fall
Well,
flat on
I
both sides, institutionally and students not being supported.
So real quick, I'm going to
but then
jump
at
in.
that
I'm going
point
to
you're
jump
just
in. We're past that 5 minutes. So again, if you guys have any specific links that you want me to bring up on screen, just let me know. Just say horseradish, and I'll pop back in, and I will pause the time, and we'll bring it up on screen so everybody can see it. But until then, I'm just going to leave you guys to it. I'm putting 30 minutes on the clock. This is your time. Go ahead and get into it, gentlemen.
Oh, whoops. Oh,
yeah,
sorry. I'm linking you this as well, what I just mentioned. So, sorry. Go ahead, Hammer.
I don't think that either of us have really disagreed heavily on like any of the stats. I think
I guess.
like
Well, maybe I
we
can
just
ask you something. So, when we're saying you said quality of education, and I'm speaking of something
yeah.
of like a education standard. So, what is like the meaningful difference that you see between those two things? How would
So
raising
when we're
the quality of education not also then raise the standard? I guess is what I'm confused about.
Well, so the standard, when we're talking about whether or not we hold students back, the claim that we should increase the standard is saying that we should increase the requirements for students in order to hold them back or in order to let them progress, right? Which is different from
So
going to the institution and being like, hey, we're gonna have better teachers, have teachers more available,
okay, so
increase funding. These are different
so
things.
okay, so just so I understand, or how you take the prompt to mean, you think that what I'm advocating for, I guess, even mentioning the information I just mentioned, that's saying that 22% of students are not proficient at math, I think was the stat, as the one off the top of my head. You think that I am then advocating that we make things even more difficult, or that is the position that I'm forced to take? Is that that's what I'm saying?
Well, not more difficult, but if we see students who are, according to you, not proficient, then we should hold them back another grade until they are proficient.
Oh, so and sure, and like, yeah, I guess because we're going to go a little bit in circles, so I can give you a little bit of information on that because. Um, like there is some data that says that with retention, and when you say retention, just holding students back, I never
Right.
used the word retention until this, but it makes sense. Um, yeah, I believe most commonly, if you hold students back in, I think it's late elementary school, early high school, and there, I don't have an exact scientific reason as to this, but they have a higher rate of dropping out of high school. And the reason being is probably there's a big social aspect to it as well. I would imagine, especially at that age. There is lots of data, however, on early intervention. So anything from I guess like pre-kindergarten to like kindergarten and like up to grade, I believe 3 or 4. Uh, I'll send Horse some links here while we're talking, but I think one of the key things is early intervention. And again, you may say this is outside of the scope of um, the debate, but when we're talking about an education standard, I do feel like policy does come into play, right? Would you agree?
Okay. Well, let me just ask you, when you talk about like early intervention, what are you specifically talking about?
Oh, so I have a couple different examples from different states. Um, sorry, give me a second here. So something like tutoring. This is from pre-K to 12. Uh, sorry, I want to find a decent one here. Okay, so there's a study here from the year 2000. This is the Chicago Child Parent Center. They had a 24% reduction in dropout by the age of 17 when they intervened when they were, or sorry, they were when they were, I guess, helped for 5 or 6 years. Um, sorry, I understand I'm floundering a little bit here.
No, no worries.
This is one of those issues where I actually got too many sources.
I can.
Okay,
I'm
here we
going to go
go.
ahead and I'm going to stop the clock real quick while you sort that out. Go ahead and find your source and send it to me, and we'll continue.
Yeah, sorry about
No, no worries.
the clumsiness there.
Nope.
So this is a study I just posted to Horse. You can bring this up. So um, yeah, so when there is significant, I guess, academic intervention. So if a student is held back and there is nothing, they're just saying, hey, you didn't do good enough, do it again, but nothing changes. They just repeat the same thing. I mean, it's sort of the definition of insanity, right? So without interventions, without either tutoring, again, summer school, without parents maybe getting involved, attendance is a huge one. Just without these sort of building blocks, these basic things, you're setting them up for failure again. So these interventions are essential, and the earlier that they happen, the more effective that they are.
Okay, so you would say, are you saying that when students are held back in their early age, or are you saying that are you talking about like early as in before the student has like crossed the point of failing the class and getting held back? Like how
So
early are you
there,
talking about?
so I believe the most effective is anywhere from pre-kinder or pre-K to anywhere up to the age of say about or sorry about up to the grade 3 or 4. Like that is the most effective ages.
Well, I mean, that might be the case that holding students back at those ages um, may be effective or it might mitigate the consequences of holding them back. But also, that's not really the issue. Like, that's not really the issue we're seeing in society that you're talking about, which is like high school students who have a hard time, um, who have a hard time with like reading proficiency and math proficiency, right? Where we would probably find those out more often a little bit later in their schooling career, right? And if we were only looking at like pre-K to kindergarten students and maybe like the first couple grades students to hold back in order to increase their education, we would probably miss probably most of these students who are going to end up struggling in school, right?
Um, I I don't believe so. I mean, I understand for the sake of this how we're segmenting things. I guess the only thing I really cop to is saying that the later that intervention happens, the less effective it is. And I know that seems like a very fairly intuitive thing to say, right?
Right.
So in terms of like, I guess this is more of a vibes type of thing, but I have struggled in school. There are certain subjects that I just did not do great at. Various things were done about it, but if you're not doing well in a class, you don't fail it overnight, right? There are signs there, and I feel like it's slightly on everyone to address these things. I feel like we're not quite talking about the prompt directly, but just to like kind of skim past this, I guess, fairly quickly. Like if you're not doing well in a class, the student knows, right? If the teacher sees they're getting their grades, they're doing their tests, they're not doing well. Uh, Maybe they're forced to get their report card signed by their parents. All of these things are sort of in place to try and identify these things. So I don't think it is the case where it's just like, well, we didn't know that they were struggling, or I think this is one of the reasons why it has to be proactive.
Yeah. Here's my issues. I feel like you're kind of answering a topic that's way like it's way more obvious. Like you're replacing the topic with something a little bit more obvious and harder to disagree with, right?
That's I mean,
Like
sure, let's
which
stick
is that
just
like
on.
students that are having which are students that are having a hard time in school should be helped by people. Like, yeah, of course, nobody's going to disagree with that.
Well, the disagreement that we're having is whether or not that would like, because I'm sort of playing in the sandbox right now of saying that, like, okay, if this is what you mean by education standards and we're talking strictly about student performance, I am going to get into other things, and maybe you'll just outright reject it. I don't know, but this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to focus right now specifically on students. And I do think that I don't think students are helpless, right? Like ultimately, if you're skipping classes, you're not going. Attendance is another issue, right? Um, I would even consider attendance to be part of having some type of standard. I understand that you can't like force people into seats, but like having incentives or you know uh, some way of getting children to school is a massive first step. Just showing up it dramatically increases your odds, believe it or not. Um,
Right, but
but
it's again, it's still part of the current standard that if you don't show up for class, you can be held back.
that's fine. So maybe to not pivot, but like maybe there's a little bit more meat on the bones. So, are you familiar with the Common Core?
I'm somewhat familiar with it.
Sure. So I don't have the exact number. I had it earlier. I want to say it was like 43 states. Essentially, it's there is no federal uh, education standard. There is a Department of Education. I have some things to say about that. I think that their massive defunding also has already directly impacted students, certain teachers getting grants and allowing for extracurricular, I guess, teaching and things like that. But regardless, the Common Core is basically an agreement that was made across several states. Results were somewhat mixed. So most states have, I guess, with some version of the Common Core. Some have modified it. Rollouts were not great everywhere, but I think that like a standard, when again we're talking about standards and we're talking about standardization. I guess maybe I can maybe appeal to more like why is it a good idea to have a higher standard? And I think that um, you know competitiveness for one, income is probably one of the most obvious ones. Income in life. Uh, Sorry, let me send this to. Oh, okay, perfect. This is just a very quick snapshot. I don't think there's anything surprising here, right? Like if you don't have a high school diploma, you are going to make less in life. Your unemployment rate's higher. I mentioned a bunch of things in my intro. Your outcomes are going to be worse. But
Hmm.
not to bounce around too much. I guess with the Common Core, I think having some sort of attempt at standardization across states, that also helps students, whether or not they're moving from state to state, because the idea right now under the ESSA is to have college or students college or university ready. Like that's the
Well,
idea.
I mean, yeah, right. Okay, so when you talk about like the results, which again, these are stats that I agree with, that like every level of education that you have increases your outcomes in life. Um, but you also said in your intro, again, this is also something that I agree with, is that society and employers often confuse like credentials with like competence, right? So if we were to increase the standards of high school education and say like, hey, the high school graduates that we're going to have need to be at a higher level of education, that's not going to necessarily increase the way that they're treated by employers. They're not going to be assumed to be more intelligent or more competent, right? They're still going to be getting the same kind of jobs. And the
So
current job market for high school graduates are like they're not still not great.
sure, I will agree. I mean, out of high school, I was working in warehouses and doing
Hmm.
odd jobs, right? Like prospects for high school students or recent high school grads are not amazing. There's this expectation that you sort of build your way up. Um, to that end, and this is actually one of the things I forgot to mention during your intro. Um, I guess it's like when we talk about higher standards, like where do these core skills come into play, right? Like reading, math, being proficient in these things. I don't know how I have to spell it out, but it feels like being better at those things will help you in all aspects, all manners of life. That'll translate to any job that you work.
So so it kind of depends. So when there's a lot of work that like proficient means, right? So if you look at the kind of jobs that the average high school graduate comes out with, like assuming you stay in college or in high school, like a high school graduate forever, the kind of jobs that you're going to have probably not super high quality, right? Um, and they're probably not super demanding, right? So when we're talking about a lack of proficiency, we're probably talking about. I saw something online that says when we say that a student is not proficient or functionally illiterate is the word that people use, it doesn't mean that they're illiterate actually, as in they can't read, they can't understand writing, or they don't comprehend concepts. It's that they can't read larger things like say a book and grasp its context fully, right? They can only read smaller sections of speech or smaller sections and interpret those effectively, which is not great. I mean, I wouldn't, it's not ideal for me, but for a lot of the jobs that these people are looking for, like factory work or landscaping or something like
I,
that,
I would,
it's
I would,
probably good enough.
I would push back. I would say it's not the jobs that they're looking for; it's the jobs that they'll end up getting. And I guess
Right.
just to like expound on this a little bit, I think that if you have even like I guess less proficiency or I guess more of a lack of understanding, I don't know the best way to phrase it, but you can I'll just name some of them. If you're better at writing, right? This could just even be the difference between writing a good resume and cover letter. It could be applying for an apartment, like banks, loans, if you have mortgages, if you have to make like I don't know, write any sort of government documents or for legal stuff, like having this basic understanding and how these things interact. And then with math, I mean, I'm not great at math, right? But like if you told me they should teach how to do your taxes in school, like I would agree with that. I think that would be great. Maybe that's an idea for raising the standard. But having like math in your day-to-day life just so you don't get ripped off or understanding interest and all these other things, banking basically, and these things that you have to interact with in life. Um, I think that there is even on the side of like just we're not just talking about income, not just talking about work. There are other things like life expectancy and some other things that there's a domino effect. Like your health tends to be worse as well, the less educated you are, and all the rest. But there are practical, translatable skills in your day-to-day life from these building blocks. And the thing I can't stress
Well, I
enough
would push
is
back
that
on that.
okay.
So, sorry, the thing you can't stress enough.
Oh, what can't I stress enough? That's a good question. Is the
Yeah.
early, the not even just early intervention, but building these habits early on. One of the things I found blackpilling was this idea that I guess the factory thing, which I understand, that is part of the Prussian model, like thing, But I guess this idea of like just making worker bees and things like that. I mean, there is a lot of truth to that. Like there is things taught in school, like being able to sit and pay attention and take notes and things that you will need in your day-to-day life for most jobs. But yeah, I feel like the education side of things is what opens up the doors for you, and I think that just that alone is a good reason to have a higher standard.
So I would push back on what you've said, which is that the first thing you said, which is that so you said that increasing the level of proficiency in math and reading that you need to get out of high school can translate to a lot of practical skills. But again, when we're talking about the word proficiency, like what level are we talking about? So the average person, what they might be able to do with their math, like the basic math that you do in your everyday life, is relatively simple, like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? This is like um this is stuff you learn in elementary school, right? And then things that, I mean, I'm sure you remember what it's like in high school. The levels of math that you learn are stuff like geometry, like graphing, y equals mx plus b, right? These are things that you're probably much less likely to use in your day-to-day life. Um, and so,
I
and
disagree with that.
you disagree with that?
Well,
Okay.
it
I,
depends on well, part of the thing with high school, and I understand this, there are certain subjects that I hated or had no interest with. Everyone's going to run into those things. The point is not that you are learning things that you don't need. It's things that one, you don't know if or when you'll need them, and two, it's to find your interests, to find out your path. So just because geometry is
right,
useless
but
to me does not mean if you want to go into engineering or physics or something, it'll be you'll see it that way, right? That's why it's taught.
well, I mean, that's kind of I'm not trying to say be mean. But to say that like make that argument and then to use that to justify holding a student back, right? If a student is ever interested in pursuing a career in education or a career in engineering or something with math, they're probably not going to be the ones who don't understand a basic math class. I mean, basic for someone
Well,
for guys like us, right? Like if they have a hard time understanding graphs and geometry, they're probably never going to be an engineer. So there's no point in holding them back, right? And then the students who do want
so
to
I
be an
feel like
engineer, we don't really have to talk about them because they were always going to, yeah,
well, sure. I feel
do
like
well.
you're kind of coming back around on yourself because one of the first questioner that I asked you during our the cross examination was I asked you if a student is not doing well enough, like what do you think should be done? And ultimately, you sort of said, well, they should be held back. Like that would be the appropriate action.
If it's an
So
absolute failure.
if you're sure, if they're, I mean, sure, you can add that conditional. But now you're saying, well, they're not interested in geometry. They're not going into anything like that. They like working, I don't know, on cars or something. Like they're never going to need this stuff.
Hmm.
I feel like one of the risks that you run with diluting these things, this isn't directly applicable to high school, but something if like if you're teaching a nursing student, right, or even just how to draw blood, there are certain industries and certain things that you need to know where you cannot cut corners, and you can't allow corners to be cut because in some cases lives will be on the line. So it's not so much, again, it's not a punitive thing. We're not saying we are punishing you or that you're stupid or that you're not good enough. We're saying, hey, you need more time. We need to help you. We need to get you there. But I don't think we can dilute it and say, well, because to me it comes off either as like a little bit condescending of like, hey, this kid, he's not really going anywhere or he's not going in this direction. So it's not a big deal. Or again, you're allowing them if you decide to advance them and you're letting that standard slip, then you're sort of looking the other way, and I feel like you're doing them a disservice.
Well, so I mean, the disservice would be to number one to hold them back because most likely they're going to drop out. We all know how harmful
I
that
feel like
is.
you're just saying. I
And
feel like you're just saying things now. I feel like you've switched your argument a little bit.
okay, so sure. That kind of goes into I was gonna there's another response that I was gonna give which is more
Sure.
direct, which is that not to be like I hate when
You
people
can be.
ask questions like this, but do you know any nurses?
Yes, yes, I do. Well,
Yes.
is an EMT a nurse? Like he rides around the ambulance. Does that count? They're
No, I
nurses,
don't
right?
think they're a nurse. I
Okay,
don't think
maybe.
there's certified
Oh no, wait.
nurses.
I do know. I do know a nurse. Well, I haven't spoken to her in a couple of years, but yeah, like friend's wife. Yeah. So I
Okay.
know of a nurse. I've spoken to a nurse before. Sorry, I'll
Okay,
let you
so I
where
have
you go with it.
yeah, yeah. No, I'm not trying to like knowledge check you. But I know several nurses and I've talked to them about the schooling that they went to through college, and it is one of the most like rigorous, brutal, intense programs. Like it'll wash you out. It is very intense, very stressful, right? People don't recognize the difficulty of becoming a nurse, right? And so that's why in colleges, when you're actually going to school to specifically be a nurse, what you said is true. Like if they're cutting corners and they're not knowing what they're supposed to be knowing, then when they get into the workforce, they're gonna hurt somebody, right? That's why the standards for the actual nursing education are so high. Whereas if we're talking about the types of jobs that we're asking a high school graduate to get, well, the standards are very low, and so the education or the requirements are really low, right? They can't really screw things up in the same way. We're not asking
I
them to do really anything advanced, and so I think that our requirements for them should probably match that. That they should be able to do what those jobs demand of them.
So I don't see this as strictly just like a jobs thing, right? Like I don't see it just as like, well, this is like you're going to be the most efficient like worker bee or something. Because one of the things is that it is building blocks, right? And it's sort of foundational. Like if you slacked off in high school, you're probably going to slack off in college. So it's about forming good habits and having a high standard, and making sure that people are able to meet that standard. To me, this is just reflective of so many aspects of life. Like it sucks, like whether or not you kind of want to go through it or you don't. Let's like even just being able to like do an interview or being able to speak with people, right? Like this, there's a social aspect obviously to everything, but I feel that these things. And again, this is one of the reasons I stress early intervention. But I think that the faster and better, like if you get people on the right track, so to speak, it pays dividends down the road. And this is also beneficial for, I guess, just the workforce, like the individual, because they have greater prospects in life. And I think that to me it's just building blocks. I don't see it as like, well, they're high school kids, they don't really need to know that much. Their job prospects are not like amazing, or maybe they're not going to go straight to university, or maybe they're going to go to trade school, right? Like everyone's path in life will diverge in some way. It's, I guess, it's giving them sort of uh the best go at it. And I feel like if you're just sort of, again, it feels like you're looking the other way if you just sort of advance them and say, well, it's kind of good enough. Like there is, sorry, I'll let you go. There is one specific stat that I wanted to bring up again, but I'll let you address that.
Yeah, so this is something that I also wanted to bring up. I remembered what I was going to bring up earlier, which is that um like I grew up in a pretty like poor area, right? So I saw the kind of conditions people grew up with and like the like lives that they had to live, right? And it is depressing, but I mean, it is just a reality of the system that we live in, is that a lot of people are just not built or they're not planned to get higher educations and have a higher quality of work. A lot of them just kind of have to settle for like the life that they end up with. And I'm not saying that like if you're poor, then you're doomed to be poor forever, but these people, and it is like a mentality thing, but these people are just they've put themselves on a life path to live this kind of life, and I think that we should like we shouldn't impede them. If we take these people and we hold them back, and keep them from the workforce for longer, they are going to just drop out because they need to enter the workforce. A lot of these people, they live in households that can't afford to keep them for another year, another 2 years, because they got held back. At that point, they would just drop out to support their family, right? A lot
Sure,
of them
like
can't go to college because they can't afford it because they need to support their family, right?
yeah, yeah, that's a very specific type of situation, and like life happens. Like yeah, if somebody has to drop out because of personal life circumstances, that makes sense, right? Like they're the most of the I don't know if I could. I won't be able to quite dig this stat up. I did read this, but I don't think I have it on hand. But the majority of students that drop out tend to have either mental health issues or substance abuse issues. I believe those are the two highest cited. So I'm not like discounting this. I'm not saying that, well, even economic realities, like you need to help out or you need to be able to live, right? Like, was it Maslow's hierarchy or
Right.
whatever? I get it. Yeah, you're never going to stop everyone dropping out, and I feel like focusing on the dropout specifically, it's like that is a symptom, and I think that again, if you're able to address, I guess, some of these underlying things, I think that you can at least mitigate some of that because you are giving people ultimately a pathway. You're not because again, this might feel a little black pilled because you're kind of like we shouldn't impede them. I think we should impede them because the worst that'll happen is they'll end up in the same place. So what
Well,
damage can you
no,
really do
hold on.
further than that? Again,
Hold
not
on.
I'm setting up aside your hyper specific situation. If they're forced to drop out, they're forced to
I
drop
don't
out.
think it I don't know. I don't think it's hyper specific. I think it's very common amongst the type of people who are failing especially hard. I mean, lower income people are much more likely to be doing poorly in school. And the reason that I say, like, you said that, oh well, we can just try holding them back and they'll end up in the same place. I'm not talking about people who are always going to drop out because they need to support themselves and their family, but there are a lot of people who can only support themselves or can only be supported up till the age of 18, who are just holding out until they can graduate high school, and their parents are just holding out till they finish high school so that they can start working. And to put more stress on them to stay in high school for a longer amount of time without working is going to increase their likelihood to drop out.
Sure, I guess I feel like they're ending up in the same place anyway. And when we say stress, I
Well, they
mean
weren't going to drop out. Like, there's a chance that they wouldn't have dropped out if they could have uh,
right.
finished on time.
To me, it does still feel like a fairly narrow window to argue in because it's people of a certain socioeconomic class or people within a certain, I guess, situation in life, and that could be commonplace. Like one of the things we don't have too much time left, but one of the things I didn't quite get to, which I guess was more on the government side, or I guess ways that like, again, I would consider this like when we're talking about the education standard. I brought up Common Core a little bit, but like the people who actually set like the standards, right? Um, like, are you familiar with what's it called, ESA or ESSA? Like, okay,
No.
so I wrote up a very quick timeline. I'll just speed run this because again I know we don't have a lot of time. But from 2001 or 2002, they had the No Child Left Behind policy. Eventually, in 2009, so about a decade later, they had the Race to the Top and the Common Core, which, as I mentioned, is kind of an agreement between a bunch of states. It varies, it looks differently. 2015 to right now, they have what's called ESA. So this is Every Student Succeeds Act. And the guidelines for the ESSA are arguably are higher. I feel like each of these that has been implemented over the last 2 decades or almost 3 decades now, the standard has risen. So I would say that there is a precedent for this, and one of the, I guess, the mission statements of ESA is to actually address exactly what you're talking about, which is people of lower socioeconomic status. We'll post a link. I hope this is the right one, Horse, but I think it's a slideshow, or it should be something like that. But this gives kind of a like a mission statement of what they're doing, and they don't. I know it can be like a bit of a hot button word focusing on equity, but I feel like some of the things that you've mentioned, some of these people who have slipped through the cracks, this is specifically trying to address. And I would also say that this is an attempt to raise the standard. So I feel like it is. Um, I don't see when raising the standard is a bad thing. To me, when I see something as being unattainable or just like out of uh, the realm of possibility, then it'll be a collective failure. But it's like so, sorry, I've done a lot of talking. I know we don't have a lot of time left, so I'll kind of let you get your words in.
Right. So again, this is just like this is a situation where you can say, well, we're increasing what we're asking for students, but the you've described a program that maybe does that, but it also is contingent on doing more to help students, right? So if we're increasing the quality of education, we're going to increase the results of students, and then if we increase the requirements for students, then it's not actually going to increase the amount of retention of and dropout or kids being held back, right? So it's again, it's not exactly the like it's this is another situation where we're just like, well, let's just do more to help these students, which again, everyone would agree with, right?
Right, and I guess to kind of bring it home is like when I'm talking about raising the education standard, that is what I'm talking about. I am talking about helping the students ultimately. And just to reiterate, and then I guess I'll have my closing statement. But like, I do think it is a multi-pronged thing, and I guess I didn't get too much time to argue from like the governmental level because the history of it is fairly interesting. I guess when I went through this, I didn't. I mean, there's so much of kind of what's happened, and as I said, with the recent sort of gutting of the Department of Education, regardless of how you feel about, like, I'm not even trying to be political or talk about Trump or anything, but like, um, one of the things I didn't even get to get into was COVID and how that affected grades in the last even 3 or 4 years. That we've seen a massive dip. So I guess to end on for me, maybe I'll let you get the last word, I guess we can keep going. It's not like a hard out, but like I do feel that there is usually a delay in these things, and COVID absolutely had an impact on students. And one of the things I cited with the reading proficiency and the math was directly affected from COVID. A lot of people, online schooling just proved to be effective for some people, but most people it wasn't, not having that socialization, that face to face. And then combined now with some of the grants that have been canceled from the Department of Education, where they exist in name only. Basically, Congress hasn't kind of shuttered the doors, but like they have been rendered toothless. That is going to have trickle down effects. Like you're lacking funding, you're lacking resources. So I see this as getting better, and I think now more than ever is the time that we need higher standards, and the people that more people will fall through the cracks, unfortunately.
You can go ahead and respond to that real quick if you want to, Hammer, before we get into closings.
Yeah, I just I'll just reiterate myself. So when the topic is we need to increase standards to hold students back more often, or we need, I mean, you didn't put the two in there, but we need to increase standards and hold students back more often. The clear implication is that we're asking more for students, and you also need to justify why. This is going to be part of my closing. All right, we can go
We
into
can
that.
just go ahead and get into the closings then. All right, cheers. All right, so chatters, just so you guys know, if you guys have any questions or anything that you think got left on the table, click that link that you keep seeing pop through the chat and put a couple bucks in the tip jar. Those questions will go to the debaters after they're done with their closing arguments and while you guys are doing your voting. You'll be able to keep those questions coming in during the voting session as well. But until then, 5 minutes is going on the clock now. That is for you first, Testicles. Go ahead and start it up when you're ready, sir. This is your closing arguments.
Sure. So, again, I don't anticipate I will need the full 5 minutes here, and I am going to I'm not gonna, maybe I'll mention one or two stats here, but I'm gonna kind of drop the stats and the rhetoric, or focus a little bit more on just a singular thing here. So I want to just talk about the student here. So if you can imagine a child who's struggling to read, and everyone around them knows it, their teacher knows, the school knows, the child probably knows as well. The children know when they're not doing well. But instead of stopping and trying to fix the problem and trying to help them, the system just shuffles them forward anyways. It's another grade. It looks good in the books. More complex assignments, more frustration, and this just compounds year after year. And that gap, that becomes a chasm, and something that they can't recover from the more the time goes on, that this was never addressed to begin with. So to me, that's not a compassionate approach. Compassion isn't pretending that a student is ready when they're not. Compassion is not giving a passing grade that hides a real problem. Real compassion needs to put honesty and support at the forefront. So that's what the higher standard really means. It doesn't mean giving up on students. Uh, they, excuse me. You want to be able to make sure that students can actually learn. Um, we need to say that you're capable of more, and because of that, we're not going to quietly pass you along while you fall further behind. A serious education system should do both things at once. It should support students early, aggressively, and patiently. But it should also tell the truth. If a student can't meet the basic standard for the next grade, then the answer should not be an automatic promotion. The answer should be intervention, remediation, and when it's necessary, more time. Because time can be a gift if it's used properly. Another year with the right help from the right people is not a punishment. Being pushed forward unprepared is a punishment. The easier choice is to move students along. It avoids conflict, it avoids difficult conversations, it makes the numbers look clean. But the student still carries that weakness with them. And the next teacher sees it, the employer sees it, and the student eventually feels it. The goal is not to fail more students. The goal is to stop failing them quietly. Promotion or grade advancement just delays the failure. It doesn't prevent it. Higher standards, early intervention, and meaningful promotion give students something better than a comfortable lie. They give students a real chance to be ready for life. And that's really better for everyone. It's better for the student because they're not pushed into harder work without the necessary skills to succeed. It's better for the teachers because they're not forced to manage classrooms where students are years apart in basic abilities. It's better for the employers because a diploma should signal a real world preparation. And it's better for society because a country where only 22% of 12th graders are proficient in math and only 35% are proficient in reading is not setting young people up for any sort of opportunity in life, any sort of competitiveness, or any sort of independence. If school is supposed to prepare students for life, then advancing when they're not ready is, excuse me, promotion, it should mean readiness. Grades should mean some level of mastery, and a diploma should mean something real. And with that, I will cede my time.
All right. And we will now go ahead and put 5 minutes on the clock for your uninterrupted closing. Hammer, I'll start it up whenever you start to talk.
I just want to say that was a pretty good and on point closing that really made pretty strong arguments for his topic, which is why we should hold students back. And I know it's not a good strategy to say that, but it's interesting that he gave those strong arguments in favor of holding students back in his closing argument when during the actual back and forth, he really wasn't able to do that. He didn't stand very strongly on that topic. He kind of talked about, well, I know that holding students back is a negative thing, but maybe we could increase the quality of education, which is again not not enough to justify his position. What the position that he needs to take is that we at its core, it is that we need to hold more students back. And I am not surprised that he didn't stand as strong on that during the back and forth, because a lot of the things that he said during his closing contradict what he said during the debate, which is that we know that holding students back is often very negative. It hurts students. He talked about how, well, we can hold them back so that they can repeat grades and increase we can once we hold them back, they will have a better understanding of the topics and they will stop failing. That is not what happens. That generally isn't the case. They don't have a better understanding. They just continue failing. They don't understand it the first time. They're not going to understand it the second time. And it also increased dropout rates, right? And we both agreed how negative dropouts are, right? When a student drops out, the things that he talked about as a benefit of high school are no longer available to a student who dropped out. Maybe you didn't understand a topic in high school, but now that you later in life, you can go back to college when in 10 years when you're 30 and you decide that you will dedicate yourself to actually understanding a topic and working on getting better math skills. So maybe you can become an engineer. That is not something that's available to you in high school, and that is not something that's available to you if you drop out, or it's not as easily, right? It cuts off those opportunities. He talked about how we need students in high school to understand topics so that they can parlay into more advanced opportunities, such as college, right? But that kind of dynamic is strange when we're talking about dropouts, because the type of student that is being held back, because the type of student that is going to fail a class so hard that they don't understand a basic concept and therefore get held back is also probably not looking ahead to go to college, right? Um, High school can do two things. It can set up it is not only to create higher level, more advanced uh, students in order to have more advanced degrees, say college. It is also to create relatively basic understanding of topics so that we can have high school level jobs, people who only have a high school education getting low level jobs. That is something that does exist within the current system. It's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere with the proposal of my opponent. And allowing students to even do that much is important for a certain demographic of people. And with that, I cede my time.
I think are you muted? I think you're muted.
I sure am. Thank you for catching me on that. I just don't want you guys to hear me over here coughing and farting and whatever. So, all right. So that brings us to the end of the debate. Thank you very much, gentlemen, both of you guys. That was absolutely great. Like Hammer sort of said there, the closings were great. Both of y'all actually did great in your closings, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So I think did the chat, since the chat was pretty engaged, I'm hoping that they throw you guys a couple of questions. I've got a question or two myself, but really it's more about theirs. But first things first, I'm going to drop the link into the chat so that everybody can go ahead and get their votes locked in as soon as possible. Remember, everybody, you are not voting for who you agreed with, and you are not voting for who you like the most. You are voting for who you think made the most compelling arguments tonight, who made their case the best, and who was the most persuasive. So, that said, we're going to roll straight into a couple of questions. Like I said, I've got a couple myself, and then hopefully they're going to kind of trickle in. But I'll go to you first, Testicles. So,
Sure.
You were saying and Hammer mentioned this as well. So I know that a lot of the questions that I'm going to ask are not going to necessarily be breaking new ground, but more that I'm trying to get you to be a little bit more in depth, peel the onion part a little bit further for us. You mentioned the negative impacts of COVID-19 on grades because of you also mentioned. Okay, first question there. Let's start with that. What do you think led to the degradation of grades based on COVID-19?
So a big part of it was the sudden switch to remote learning. It is also, from what I've read, I don't know if I have a link for this, but I can verify this for you. It has also been then subsequently linked to absenteeism. It's a lot easier to skip class by not opening up Zoom or whatever than it is, to your parents to drop you off and you having to sneak out through the back or something. So the mechanism was a lot easier. And the third thing, I don't have a hard date on this. I would have to find. This is related to more broadly. I know this is a fact for like young children. Excuse me. The socialization aspect of it. The Many people don't learn well in sort of isolation, and so missing that social component also can affect learning.
All right, and that was the one that I was looking for. So, if we know that the social impact of COVID-19 had a negative impact on grades and just education and how seriously the kids took it, et cetera, do you not think that we would have a similar negative impact of socialization by holding kids back, whether it's because they are now the oldest kid in the room and get made fun of for it, calling names and whatnot, insulting their intelligence, or for that matter, that older kid now tends to want to bully, especially given their resentment for being held back? Is there not going to have the same negative impact on the socialization by holding the students back?
I think it certainly can. Um, like that's a very intuitive sort of way to approach it. And one of the things I've stressed in the debate, not to take not take a swipe at Hammer. He said in his closing I didn't address it at all, but what I keep trying to stress is the early intervention, and the specific range was sort of kindergarten, pre-K, and then also about up to the grade 3 to 4 level seems to be the most effective from the data that I've seen. I think that what you're describing is a lot more pronounced. I'm not saying that younger kids are immune to, I'm sure it's still tough for them to see their best friend or at the time maybe advance. They would probably still be friends. There's a little bit less of a difference. They'll still have recess and things together, but that socialization aspect, I think, comes into play a lot more dramatically the older the child gets. And I think that's one of the reasons that we see that it has a larger detrimental effect. And the one last thing I'll tag on to that is that it is the definition of insanity. Holding them back, again, is the sort of a last resort, and it is not, it's not a matter of like policy, it's a matter of necessity. And so the socialization aspect is certainly a factor, but giving the most important thing, in my opinion, is giving them access to the resources to succeed academically. I think that will be more beneficial long term.
Okay. Now over to you, Hammer. So you acknowledged several of the things that you agree were an issue insofar as the current education system, right? And how things have been degrading. What do you think, if you can kind of summarize, what do you think a more apt solution would be for the lowering of school or attendance, grades, et cetera, if raising the standards and holding kids back more isn't the move? What is the move?
I mean, you can come up with a million things. Like most of these things are in place. So extracurriculars tend to increase the results of kids throughout their education. The stats show this. So funding for these, also home life issues are one of the, I think maybe the biggest predictor for school success. So any kind of policy that helps with that would be necessary, right? I think that you shook your head. So, oh, are you sorry? Um, but yeah, all of these things. So there's so many factors outside of like, is the student smart enough, right? That contribute to whether the student is engaged enough, and that is really like the core base. Like, is the student engaged enough, right? And so we need to solve those issues before we can even really think about holding them back.
Okay.
I don't know. Can I ask for a source?
Well, sure.
There was one
If you have a
particular
source
thing in there.
There was, well, first of all, I do want to explain there are other people in the studio with me, so you saw me shaking my head. I wasn't on camera. I didn't remember that you guys could see, so I was shaking my head to somebody else. That said, yes, I would absolutely love to see those sources as well. This is more for just our own edification and such, more than
it was the one to do with the extracurricular activities. I don't know if the specific claim was that it led to a lower rate of dropout. I don't know if that was. But I would also think that extracurriculars, depending on what they are, can also cost money and be expensive, and that there
can be a distraction, but they can also be a carrot on a stick to keep kids involved and engaged.
Yeah,
if you have to maintain a certain grade, you more likely. So yeah, but yeah, any sources you have on that, Hammer, would be awesome. Which then that brings me to, well, you know what? Okay, I'll tell you what then. While he's doing that, testicles, I have a source that I would like, or if you have any information.
Okay.
Do we know the statistics on holding students back and whether or not they do better the second time through the class? Like, do we have any statistics that show that it is actually beneficial them going, or does that not lead to perhaps like negative outcomes downstream, whether that's them checking out of class early because they give up or because they become discouraged? Perhaps they become more dug in and giving up, or become more resentful. Like, do we have any actual studies? Are students who are held back once, how often are they held back a second time? Do you know?
So I don't know about the repetition of holding students back. I imagine it wouldn't be super common, but I don't have that specific piece of information.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say it, even though this is not great for my side, because I have to stress the first part, speaking about the education standards being like if the education standards are raised, there's no reason to hold students back. However, the stats that I've seen on that are not great. I believe the most common, if you hold a student back, I believe it's grades 6 to 7. I don't think I copied that link because, but I'm being as good faith as possible here.
Yeah, of course.
I believe that I believe grades 6 to 7 had the highest rate of students ultimately dropping out. That seems to be like, at least in this one study I had read, and I'll see if I can track it down again.
Okay.
But that does seem to be the most sort of, I guess, sensitive age for that. And I do have a fair bit of evidence, and it's the somewhat unfortunate part is because apart from Common Core, which is fairly standardized but also varies massively by state, and this is just to clarify, that just means being ready for either college or university. That's sort of the standard that they try to get to. But there's a lot more evidence that's showing, again, younger children, early intervention. So this would include things like tutoring after class, or summer school, things like that. It seems that there is a decent amount of information in specific states that that type of intervention is very effective, and it doesn't actually impact dropout rates. I do have some links here, so I'll see if I can send some
All right,
over.
and while you're doing that, as it happens,
Okay.
Hammer was able to find his sources. I did drop it into the chat for everybody. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up on screen as well. Is there a specific? Okay, we got some. Okay, there we
Yeah,
go.
if you want to look at, so my claim was that, and this shows it, is that not that it decreases dropouts, which I'm sure it does, but also that it increases academic performance. So if you scroll down to table 1, you
Yep.
can see all the different factors, and these are by percentage. So no unexcused absences. It goes from 50%, around 50% to 36% for non-participants. Like there's a pretty huge difference. Never skip classes, 50.7 to 42.3. Have a GPA of 3.0 or above, 30.6% to 10.8% for non-participants. Highest quartile of composite math and reading assessment is 29.8 to 14.2% for non-participants, and expected to earn a bachelor's degree or higher, 68.2% to 48.2%. Those are some pretty huge differences.
They are. So real quick to
I'll look-
play to just go ahead. You can probably say what I was about to say.
Oh, the one little caveat I will put on that is that, and I didn't even go back this far. For some reason, I just decided on the year 2000 as like as far back as I would go. I would say that the data is from 1992, so I would intuitively
Even so.
I would imagine that. Yeah, but that would be my one
Well,
little nitpick.
so my question to you, Hammer, and I don't know how much in your prep you actually read of that particular article or of that study or those studies. Do they have any way that they're able to parse for causation versus correlation? Like, it seems to me like the students who do well or who are less likely to skip would also be the ones who are more likely to be motivated to be involved in extracurriculars. So it's possible that they're just, those kids are the overachiever kids, as opposed to it's because they're involved. Do they get into that in the study? Do you know?
I mean,
I'm sure there's a way that they could, I don't even know how they
But
would be able to
also,
factor for that. So
yeah, I would say it's impossible to completely parse causation,
yeah,
but just intuitively, I mean, yes, that's true that the students who are already engaged are going to be engaged enough to start extracurriculars, but also extracurricular activities are, I mean, subjectively they're fun and engaging, right? So if you're engaged in a school activity, then you're overall engaged in school. So extracurriculars, the value of them is that they provide, because school for a lot of people kind of sucks and it's rigorous and it's like tedious, but extracurriculars are a school event that are not as much, and they are actually engaging and fun, and they give you a lot of skills that could help you like specify into your interests.
okay, all right. So real quick, Testicle has brought up now
I think
his.
Yeah, I think one's from Indiana. I want to say I think the first one's Indiana. The second one is from Florida, and I believe they both deal with grade 3, and I think the Florida one is grade 3 and 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
There.
Was there a specific part that we wanted to go to, or?
For the sake of convenience, I mean, you can look at the conclusion, I guess, in terms of what they say, but which I know is not like the greatest thing to do. But I don't have a specific page or passage.
Okay,
for
but
you.
it's at least a reference. All right, fantastic. And then this other one you said was from where?
I believe it's Florida. I think this one is, or hang on, I don't know, maybe open them in the other order. Yeah, this one is.
I did open them up
Oh, this
in
is
the
the
opposite order.
that's totally fine. So this is the Indiana one. So it gives you the abstract there as well. So the findings show in Indiana. I missed it there.
All right. And once again, I'm dropping these links into the chat so that the viewers can also kind of peruse this at their own leisure, and do their own research
Yeah,
and
what I
reading.
just as a quick aside, what I might start doing for future debates is actually take screenshots from the relevant passages, because I even realize now that I'm overwhelmed by my own links, and it's just like I have all this information, but then it's like you gotta go hunting for it. So it's yeah.
No worries.
But
I definitely understand, and I would rather you guys be overprepared than underprepared. So cheers.
if I could just read the where is it
Yeah,
here?
go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess this is so it says our findings combine to show that Indiana's third grade retention policy improves achievement for retained students without adverse impacts along measured non-academic dimensions. So this would be things like dropping or not dropping out, obviously at that age, but I believe they tracked them for a certain period of time. So they track their outcomes for up to 5 years. So from grade 3 to whatever that would be, some point in high school, and they found improvements rather than, I guess, consequences. So acknowledging the social aspect, but again, I think what I would stress is the early intervention or early retention is far more effective, and later on, once they're young adults into puberty, teenagers, that does seem to have negative outcomes.
Okay. All right. So one more quick question. We've only got a few more minutes for everybody to get your votes locked in, please. But one more quick question. This one's kind of you mentioned the No Child Left Behind in the ESSA there towards the end.
Right. I didn't have a lot of time.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I started going through everything. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say I'd like to put a minute on there for you so you can kind of where were you going to go with that, or what was your take on those two programs?
So my overall, I didn't know if I had a particular take, because the more I was looking into this, and I guess it's just kind of per administration, there are these sort of policies that were put in place. um, I guess I can make an overall argument, and the reason I just wanted to lay out the timeline is to kind of show that there has been a recognition, by the government and in various states, that there is an issue with the education system. And so the overall argument I was kind of trying to make here is that um, the standards have been consistently raised, and I think for the betterment. Like, even though I cited something like I believe it's called or it's not GPA inflation, but it's grade inflation or something like that. But um, like, students are achieving higher grades, but then on SAT scores they are doing slightly worse, which shows that there is a more willingness to kind of, stamp the paper and push them through. But the external validations of those types of things are not showing sort of this increase in their actual knowledge. So yeah, it was basically to kind of just give an overview of, I guess, the last almost 30 years here, to show that there are gaps, there are issues that were created, and this is well, the No Child Left Behind. Just to answer your question, they created the NCLB, so this is kind of what encouraged testing and accountability, but it wasn't like a mastery. It wasn't something that was or sorry, through the NCLB. My bad.
Yeah, you had it right the first time.
Yeah, so yeah. So that was what the intention was. It was to
Okay.
kind of encourage the start of these things and to try to standardize them in some way, because before that, it was kind of a shit show, state to state, to my
All right.
knowledge.
Yeah, no worries. Now to you, Hammer. Same question, sort of. But do you think that the No Child Left Behind programs were beneficial? Do you think that they actually served the goal that they were trying to? Because it seems to me that that's sort of what you're advocating for, right?
I think that yeah, I think that are they beneficial? I'm not saying that, like, okay, Yes, I think they're beneficial in the long run. I think that overall, on a balance of things, it's better to not hold a kid back because it just increases their. It has so many negative results. I would say I wouldn't use the word beneficial. I would say necessary. Like it's necessary to just allow um, students who are struggling to get the basics of a high school education because it is important for what they need in life. And I think that holding students back can kind of hold them, like it can keep
Hold
them
them back
from
in life.
getting that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
No, cheers. All right, fair enough. Well, once again, I would like to say thank you very much, gentlemen, both of you guys, for what you did tonight. It was absolutely wonderful, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. I think the chatters will agree that you both put in a hell of a performance. I'm curious to see where they landed for you guys, though. So we are out of time on the clock. I hope all of you have clicked that link. I hope that we see a bunch of votes, and let's go ahead and lock it in. So, without further ado, wow. Okay, so it looks like the vote was overwhelmingly in favor of the affirmative Testicle Johnson, with an 88% to 11% of the votes. So, yeah, great job, Testes. And I mean, it was a great job from you as well, Hammer. Again, as always, I don't think that there was any losers here tonight. I think we all got to win by listening to that conversation. I'm going to go ahead and actually give it to each of you guys, let you guys kind of introduce yourselves. I will be dropping your links into the chat over here on Twitch. We're not going to even bother if you don't want to messing, because since you already struggled with all that tech stuff, we're not going to try and do the stream together this time. It's easy, but we can try and do it next time if you decide to come back again. But I'm going to go ahead and kick this over to you right now. Easy, please do me a favor and tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you.
All right, so this isn't openings or nothing.
This is not openings. This is you just introducing yourself, telling the people who you are.
Okay, awesome. So I go by Speak Easy. I'm mainly on YouTube and Rumble, but you can find me everywhere. I'm basically a conservative political commentator and debater, and I host the most entertaining debate panel with a cash prize on YouTube and Rumble every Friday, 7:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Come on over and win some money. We got the prize is up to $1,200 right now. That's what you can win. So come take a shot.
God damn. Yeah, and like I said, I did drop his link down there in the chat. Everybody please give that a click and give it a sub. And for what it's worth, yeah, Easy is cooler in the backside of a pillow. I've seen this man stand up to literally a whole team of people I've never seen somebody who could deal with haters as well as Easy does. So anyways, over to Ryan, Mr. Mullally. Please go ahead and tell everybody who you are, what you're about, and where they can find you. I'll drop your link as well.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm Ryan Mullally. I'm an attorney. I've litigated every level of the U.S. legal system up to and including the U.S. Supreme Court. And if you know me in this corner of the internet, it's probably for spanking people like Pisco and Destiny in debates, or from the greatest law and politics show in the history of the internet, Law and Order, every other Monday with the great Rob Knorr. So, and you might have seen me on Word War Debate, might see me moderate some Word War debates coming up. But anyway, delighted to be here and appreciate you coming on, Speak. And Horseradish, always a pleasure.
Pleasure is all mine, gentlemen. All right, so we're going to do things just a little bit differently. Easy was concerned that 30 minutes of the open forum might not be enough for you guys. So the way this works is we got a 5-minute opening from the affirmative, so Easy's going to talk for 5 minutes. Then Mullally's going to have 5 minutes to cross-examine or rebut as he sees fit. Then he's going to get 5 minutes to open, and then it's going to go back to Easy to be able to cross-examine or rebut as he sees fit. After that, we're going to go to a 30-minute open forum where the gentlemen are just going to talk it out. They're going to get to all the corners of the argument. if at the end of that 30 minutes, I'm going to ask them if both of them agree that they want another 15 minutes tacked on, I'm going to do that. If they want to just go straight into their closings from there, then we're going to do that. So after that, we're going to go into 5-minute closings from each of them in the same order. And then we're going to go to the voting and questions period. Again, chatters, if you guys have questions you think that got missed in the debate, or you just want something answered, I please try to keep it relatively appropriate. But go ahead and throw a couple bucks in the tip jar, and we'll get those questions to them during the voting period. So I'm pretty sure both of these gentlemen understand the assignment. I don't think I need to go into any further details. So Mr. Easy, you are up first. 5 minutes on the clock. Juries should be made of judges, not peers. I will start the clock when you start to talk, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Like I said, thank you to Horseradish for hosting this matchup. And I want to thank you to my opponent for showing up to help me prove jury trials are a joke. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. So tonight, I'm going to assume my opponent is going to spend a lot of time talking about democracy, tradition, civic participation, the founding fathers, maybe community values. I'm going to talk about one thing. It's truth. All right, because the purpose of a courtroom is not democracy. The purpose of a courtroom is not civic engagement. The purpose of a courtroom is not making people feel represented. A purpose of a courtroom is determining the truth. And if the purpose is determining the truth, then the question before us tonight is incredibly simple. Who is better equipped to determine the truth? 3 to 5 trained judges with years of legal education, courtroom experience, and professional accountability, or 12 random assholes who happen to get a letter in the mail? That is the entire debate. Everything else is a distraction. We are the only profession in society where people somehow think expertise becomes less valuable the higher the stakes get. If your child needed heart surgery, would you put 12 random citizens in an operating room and ask them to vote on where to cut? Of course you wouldn't. If you're flying across the Atlantic, would you replace your pilot with 12 random passengers and ask them to collectively decide how to land a plane? Of course you wouldn't. But somehow, when somebody's liberty, reputation, livelihood, or life is on the line, we're told random strangers are preferable to trained professionals. That makes absolutely no sense. The jury system is built on a contradiction. We're told jurors are impartial, but then we spend days to months trying to remove biased jurors. Think about this. The entire jury selection process exists because everyone involved already knows the jurors are biased. The defense wants certain jurors. Both sides spend enormous amounts of time trying to shape the jury. Why? Because everyone understands something we're not supposed to say out loud. Human beings are emotional, they're tribal, and human beings are biased. The entire process begins with both sides trying to assemble the most favorable audience. That is not a search for truth. That is a strategic jury shopping. And even after all of that, we still end up with mistrials, hung juries, deadlocked juries, overturned convictions, retrials, millions of taxpayer dollars wasted because 12 assholes couldn't agree on what happened. Meanwhile, judges are trained to evaluate evidence. They're trained to identify logical fallacies. They're trained to apply legal standards. Most importantly, judges are accountable. When a judge makes a decision, there is a record. There is reasoning, there is precedent, there is appeal, there's oversight. When a jury makes a bad decision, what do we get? Nothing. No explanation, no reasoning, no accountability. The verdict arrives like a message from a black box. We're simply told to trust it. Now, my opponent may say that juries represent the community. My response is simple. Justice should represent truth, not popularity. See, there was a time when communities supported segregation. There was a time when communities supported slavery. There was a time when communities supported discrimination. There was a time when communities supported all kinds of things we know now, we recognize it's deeply wrong. So truth does not become more true because more people believe it. And justice doesn't become more just because it reflects a public opinion. It becomes, and that's why tonight, I reject the idea that the highest stakes decisions in our legal system should be made by people selected for convenience rather than competence. I reject the idea that emotion is superior to expertise. I reject the idea that randomness is superior to professionalism. And I reject the idea that the pursuit of truth is strengthened by replacing trained judgment with an amateur opinion. Because at the end of the day, my opponent's position boils down to one claim, that when the stakes are at the highest, expertise matters less. And I think that's absurd. If you're sitting there thinking, you know what? This guy might actually have a point, then congratulations, you just discovered one of the biggest flaws in the jury system. Because I'm not standing here as a judge. I'm not standing here as a lawyer. I'm an ex-drug dealer with a YouTube channel and a microphone. And if someone like me can influence your thinking in 5 minutes, imagine a skilled prosecutor and a defense attorney can do to 12 random assholes locked in a room. That's not a defense of jury trials. That's an argument against them. And if we trust experts to build our bridges, fly our planes, perform our surgeries, and design our infrastructure, then we should trust experts to determine facts in a courtroom, because justice deserves better than a popularity contest. And that's the end of my opening.
All right. All right. So, Mr. Mullally, this is 5 minutes for you. Again, you can use this to cross-examine or to rebut as you see fit. You control the time. I'll start the clock when you start to talk, sir.
Thanks so much. So, Speakeasy, given all that you said about juries, why do you think our Constitution and our founders guaranteed the right to a jury trial? What were they seeking to accomplish by doing that?
What do I think they were trying to accomplish?
Well, they knew that judges knew more about the law than lay people back then. That didn't change. In fact, the gap was probably wider. There was no internet. Lay people probably knew shit about the law back at the founding. So I agree with you that lay people back then probably didn't know anything about the law. But our founders said you have a right to a jury trial before a criminal conviction. Why did they do that? In your mind, why did they decide that was so important?
Because they were emotional, maybe.
You don't think they had a different reason? Maybe just they were emotional.
Well, I know you're fishing for a certain answer, but I'm not
Nah,
going to give that to you.
I just want to see where your head's at. I want to see what you believe.
Well, regardless of what they thought, I think you'd agree that the Constitution's a living document, right? Meant to be interpreted.
No, I don't. I'm not an
No?
originalist. I think the Constitution has a fixed original meaning, and the only way to change
Okay.
it is through a constitutional
So
amendment.
okay, so then I'm not sure then what you would think. I would think that they were the reason for it is because it was at a time when 12 guys were sitting in a room trying to decide who stole the neighbor's cow. Right? It didn't determine DNA evidence. It didn't require cross examination like you're doing right now. It didn't require all this stuff. It required who knew the guys in the neighborhood because there was a lot less people. It was in modernity. It wasn't meant for this. That's
Well,
what
I
I
mean,
think.
some of that. I mean, there certainly wasn't DNA evidence. Your right to confront your accuser and therefore your right to confront witnesses and cross-examination is actually in the Constitution. So I disagree with that bit, but there are certainly the world has moved on. Okay, so a few more questions. You said that judges are accountable.
Yeah.
How are judges accountable for their bad decisions? Like, how's a federal judge held accountable?
Well, because we have record of their reasonings,
Hmm.
right? Like when a jury shows up and they give their reasoning for a verdict, we have no record of this. We don't know who they are, nothing. Right? We have many examples that we can look at that show that when judges do shit that are wrong, they get held accountable for it.
Okay, so it's the paper record. That's the part that you're thinking about.
Right.
Okay, and then there are like I'm just going to talk about the federal system because when you get into 50 states, it gets really really complicated really fast because states are very different. But federally, you said that you wanted 4 or 5 judges per, like if you were going to have your system, it would be juries made of judges, and if I remember correctly, you said it would be 4 or 5 on each one, right?
Yeah, 3 to 5. 3 to 5.
3 to 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many federal district judges there are in the country?
Not exact number, no.
Okay. It's I think it's like 670, 690. It's less than 700 in the entire country. I think one issue that we're going to run into is just that you're not going to have enough judges would be one problem. So that's more of a practical problem. I'm sure there are ways we could talk about how to fix that, but there are some practical issues there. Okay. And then you said that criminal justice is about like it's only about truth. That's the only value that we should have in a criminal justice proceeding. Is that a fair representation of your point?
Yeah, I think the courtroom is about determining the truth. Yeah.
Okay. And there's no other factors that you think you want to put in play other than determining the truth?
Well, obviously justice. Yeah.
Okay, because I guess like a question I have is, in a civil trial, you lose if the jury thinks it's 51% likely you did it, right? If they think more likely than not you did it, you lose. But in a criminal trial, the Constitution requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt, meaning like they got to be super, super, super sure that you did it, right? So even if you probably did it, you get acquitted. Why do you think our system would let people who probably did it go if it's just about truth? What's that for? What's the beyond a reasonable doubt standard for?
The beyond a reasonable doubt standard is to make sure we don't put innocent people in jail. What's that have to do with juries?
Well, but it means that sometimes someone
I
who did
think
it gets
my
away with
point
it,
is
right?
that a judge is better at getting to the beyond reasonable doubt than a random guy off the street. That's my point.
Okay. No, that I appreciate your answers, and I think that's 5 minutes.
Oh shit. Okay.
It
that
is
was
indeed.
fast.
Time flies when you're having fun. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put 5 minutes on the clock now for you. And go ahead and this is a 5-minute uninterrupted opening. Ryan, it's all yours, sir.
Well, I appreciate Speakeasy, and I appreciate, by the way, that I think he gave honest and thorough answers to the questions. He wasn't ducking, he wasn't being evasive. It makes it a better conversation. So I appreciate that. I think that truth and justice are one of the reasons we have jury trials for criminal charges in this country, why it's required that you have a jury trial, required by the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution. But it's not the only reason. In fact, it's probably not the main reason that we do jury trials. And I might actually agree with Speakeasy that if the only goal was truth, there would be better ways of doing it. But the only goal is not truth. So let's go back in time. Let's go to why are we a country? What is it that we are in America? Well, our founders wrote a nasty letter to King George called the Declaration of Independence, where we wrote down a list of grievances. What are the things that King George did that made it intolerable, that made revolution necessary? And on that list, one of the things they wrote down was for, quote, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. It was one of the main grievances our founders had with England. Why did they think this was so important? Why was this such a big deal? Why was this written into our Constitution? Well, you can look at what our founders say, and they'll tell you. John Adams said, quote, representative government and trial by jury are the heart and lungs of liberty. Without them, we have no other fortification against being ridden like horses, fleeced like sheep, worked like cattle, and fed and clothed like swine and hounds. Thomas Jefferson said, I consider trial by jury as the only anchor ever yet imagined by man by which a government can be held to the principles of its constitution. He also said, the wisdom of our ages and the blood of our heroes has been devoted to the attainment of trial by jury. It should be the creed of our political faith. Why did they say these things? Why were our founders so impassioned about juries? It's not because of truth. What they were impassioned by was the prevention of the tyrannical imposition of power by the government, and in particular, the imposition of tyrannical power by the majority, because the majority has the power to write laws. So let me give you a for instance. And I know Speakeasy and I are both on the right, so I'll make it a fun one. Gavin Newsom is president. He's been elected by overwhelming margins. And he brings back in that girl who was doing the disinformation board for Biden back in the day. And President Newsom writes a law that says if you post conservative memes, you go to jail for 15 years. That's the law. Clear as day. Let's set aside the First Amendment for now. Let's just set it aside. They start prosecuting this. If you post a conservative meme, you go to jail. Now, judges understand the law. They understand what the law is. The law says if you post a conservative meme, you go to jail. If you have a trial and the judges are the only person who's there to decide your guilt or innocence, the judges are going to interpret it correctly, and Speakeasy and me go to jail. But if you have a jury, the jury might say, nah, that is an unjust law. I don't care. I'm not convicting this guy. He doesn't deserve to go to jail, even though he's technically guilty of this law, because I think the law is unjust. The jury checks the power of a potentially tyrannical government. And the way that you can tease this out is to ask the following: who do judges work for? Who pays them? Who pays their paycheck? The federal government does. Who decides to prosecute you with a crime? The federal government does. It's one hand and the other hand. Now, they're in separate branches of government. I grant you that. There are separations of powers that are designed to prevent them from becoming tyrannical, but they are part and parcel of the same system. And if there is no room for the people in this system, if it's just one hand of the government and the other hand of the government deciding whether or not you go to prison, then you are on the verge of tyranny. The government can throw you in jail whenever they pass a law for whatever they want to do. So why were our founders so obsessed with juries? Why was it in the Declaration of Independence? Why was it in the Constitution? Because they were designing a system that was going to be, to the best of their ability, tyranny-proof. That's why they care about juries. They want to stop the government from tyrannizing you. And they want to stop the government from tyrannizing you, especially when 51% of the population decides to beat 49% of the population with sticks, and they pass a law that says it's legal to do it.
All right. Now, once again, same thing, easy. It's going to be 5 minutes for you. Use as you see fit. This is your time to either rebut or cross-examine. I'll start the clock when you start to talk, sir. You are muted in Discord,
You're muted,
sir.
brother.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
it
I
happens
do
at
that
least
so I
once a
don't
night, my friend,
interrupt
as you were.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to say it doesn't sound like here you're defending at all that like jurors are better fact finders. So it seems like you're kind of conceding that. Am I reading that wrong?
I don't think jurors are better at like technical understanding of the law or like reading like complex documents or things like that, if that's your point. I don't think that jurors are worse about other things, like for example, is a witness credible? Like, do I believe this person? I don't know that they're worse at that. But my primary argument was not about capacity to find truth, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm asking. All right. So do judges currently exist in the United States?
Yep, they sure do.
Do federal judges currently issue rulings against the government?
Sometimes, yeah.
So do judges currently strike down unconstitutional laws?
Yep, they sure do.
So judges are already capable of acting as a check on government power?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes not, but sometimes, yeah.
So tyranny arguments kind of out the window now?
No, no, not at all. You a
What?
big fan of the Democrat plan to pack the court?
Well, no, I'm not a big fan of it, but this is
Well, because like
what's your point? Sorry, I'll let you
let
go
me
where
give you
you
an
go.
example. Let's say my Gavin Newsom example, right? The Democrats are like, holy shit, we're not getting enough convictions. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna add 80,000 judges. And who are we gonna pick to be our 80,000 judges? We're gonna pick the most left-leaning, free speech hating judges we can find. And you know that if we want to be tyrannical, we can be tyrannical. All a judge is somebody the government says is a judge. You don't even
Yeah, so
have to
this
have a
is a
law degree.
political problem, not a jury argument. Right. So like I get that. That's a political argument, right? Like I remember I'd have like rotating panel. I've fleshed out what I would do in other streams about this, but like I would have rotating panels, multiple judges, there would be oversights committees. There would obviously like court packing isn't going to be solved with putting jurors there.
Oh no, it's not solved, but it protects me. Like, let's say they pack the court. They get all these fucking crazy justices in there. They get all like the judges are corrupt. They just maximize political power because you can maximize political power to corrupt the judiciary. But at the end of the day, to put me in jail, they still need to get 12 people from my community to say it's okay. No matter how powerful the judge are, no matter what they say, I can. If the community says you can't throw them in jail, they can't do it, right? And that's the ultimate check on tyranny is that the government is limited in their ability to put me in jail. They can't bypass the jury no matter what they want to do. So it's a limitation on government power, which I'm a fan of.
So it's strictly the limitation on government power. Or okay, yeah. So okay, so if Congress, I want to bring up this one thing you said here. I wrote it's about the conservative memes. Like, if Congress did pass a law criminalizing this, wouldn't that law still have to survive like constitutional review?
Yeah, it would. And I said setting aside the First Amendment because I was trying to have
Okay.
I was trying to have some
Okay.
examples.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Then that's yeah.
If you
Because
want,
I was just gonna say that
different.
judges do this, right? Who does that? Who performs constitutional reviews?
Yeah, judges do. But like
Not
you
juries.
No. But you could change the example, right? Like you could do like there's a lot of ways you could do that. But the thing about
But can a
that sort
jury
of situation,
strike down an unconstitutional law?
no. They
Judges
can they can choose not to enforce it, but they can't strike it down.
Yeah, but there's also the other side where they could enact things that are unjust as well, give guilty verdicts to people who don't deserve it and whatnot,
Sure.
right?
So can judges. I mean, like the thing at the end of the day is that like men are not angels, right? Like
Right.
like all the
100%.
fallibility that jurors have, judges have too. Now there's some particularities that are different. Like jurors are going to be on the whole probably less likely to be legally educated, and judges are on the whole going to be much more invested in the federal system, in the federal government, and have political affiliations. So there's there's pros and cons. But
Let me ask you something. Actually, I kind of want to test you a little bit on that meme hypothetical you gave me. If that was really like, if a law banning conservative memes was like it was constitutional, why should a jury have the power to ignore a democratically enacted law?
Because it's unjust and tyrannical, and the purpose of
It's
government is not.
Wait, it's a democratically enacted law.
I know we're
How
out of
is
time,
that?
but I want to make sure to answer this question.
Oh, okay, sorry.
One of the things that the left says that drives me fucking crazy because they're just wrong is that they treat democracy like the end all be all. The end all be all is natural law and natural rights. The goal is justice, not democracy. Democracy is a means to the end, not an end.
All right, and on that note, I'm going to go ahead and put the 30 minutes on the clock. This is open forum. Just go ahead and go back and forth. Remember, afterwards, if you guys are done, then we'll go to the closings. If not, I'll tack another 15 minutes on it for you. Go ahead and just jump back in, gentlemen.
So I think you see where I'm going with this now, because I like that we did the cross examination. By the way, I think it's more fun than rebuttals, and you get more. It's more interesting, at least to me. But the problem I have with having it be judges at the end of the day is that the same people who pass the laws, Congress, can control the judges through court packing, by appointments, by impeachment. Like they're the ones who decide how many judges there are. They're the ones who decide what the judges are paid. Like they have a lot of control over the judges, and I'm uncomfortable with there being no room for the people in the system, right? Because if the government has all this power, they can decide whether to charge you, and then the judges decide whether you're guilty. Like they could tyrannize you so easily. That's
all
my
these
problem.
safeguards against tyranny, though, are currently performed by judges. Judicial reviews, constitutional reviews, appeals, injunctions, striking down law. This is all judges that do this.
Well, some of them are done by judges. Like, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have judges, but you're saying that we should take away the one role that the people have in the criminal justice system, and I don't see why we should do that. Like the thing about having to convince 12 of my people from my community that I did something wrong beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's why I deserve to go to jail. I think that's a big test for the government, and I
What
don't
if you're a
think
black dude in a community of a bunch of people that are white that hate black people? How fair is that? Or what if
I'm
you're a
not sure.
cop that was posted all over the internet as a killer that gave 20 years of his life to being a police officer, and he was posted as a killer before he even was put in front of a jury? What about that? In modernity, a jury is a joke. Kyle Rittenhouse almost went to jail for defending himself.
That's a great example. Kyle Rittenhouse was correctly acquitted by a jury of his peers.
Look at all the problems that
And
happened leading up to that.
but like think about that
Look
for
at
a
all the
second.
problems leading up to that.
Sure,
Derek
but
Chauvin's in jail right now,
no,
isn't he?
Let's circle back because I think that the Kyle Rittenhouse example is
He's lucky.
I
Kyle
love you, brother,
Rittenhouse
but
is lucky.
that's a kill shot for your position because
No, it's not. It's
Kyle
not
Rittenhouse
though.
was the victim
Because
of
I'm about to name you
extraordinary.
10 other ones that went the other way. That's
Why
why
don't
you didn't
you
want to go to Derek Chauvin. You
why
probably
don't
don't
you
want to
say
go to O.J.
you want
Simpson.
to say your
You want to
piece and
keep
then let me say
going?
mine, or you want to talk over each other?
Go ahead.
Because I feel like right now we're just talking over each other. So you want to say your piece, or you want me to say mine?
I want you to address everybody though. I bring up Kyle
Sure.
Rittenhouse because he was lucky. You have to bring up all the problems that came
Yeah.
in with the jury.
There's
It
no
wasn't just he got off with the jury. There was a bunch of issues that he almost didn't. Right?
There is no guarantee that jurors are always going to be correct. And in fact, I will concede that they are often wrong. They make mistakes. But there's structural pieces to this that are important. Kyle Rittenhouse was maligned in the press, like almost no defendant I've ever seen. And I mean, I thought he was guilty before I started watching the trial because I didn't know any better back then. I didn't know media literacy. Then I watched the trial, I was like, holy shit, this dude's innocent. And he was correctly acquitted. The reason he was correctly acquitted is that he had a jury of his peers there to watch out for his back, and that matters. Now, the thing about having 12 jurors who have to be unanimous is, yes, it is possible that they'll get it wrong. But when they get it wrong, they're more likely than not going to prevent the government from doing things rather than doing something the government isn't entitled to do. Because if even one of them says you're innocent, the government can't send you to jail. Right? So like even if one person in my community out of 12 says the government can't do this to me, the government can't do this to me.
So
And what I'm saying
your argument is ultimately jury nullification? That's your argument?
jury nullification is actually an important part of our system. It's not an accident. It's there on purpose. Jury nullification is the last ditch effort that people have to prevent the imposition of tyrannical laws.
So the solution is not better fact finding. The solution is empowering a bunch of random assholes to ignore laws they personally dislike.
Fact finding by who?
That's what that is.
The government, the same government that charged you?
That's where the laws come from. Your rights ultimately come from here. Like I don't understand why
your
we
legal
keep
rights
doing that.
your legal rights do, not your moral rights. But the point that I'm
Right.
making,
So I could
the-
personally dislike something, and that's okay for me to nullify the court because I just personally dislike a law.
I don't think you should, but it is possible for a juror to do it. The reason
Do you support the jury that acquitted OJ?
I think they got it wrong, but I'm glad they have the power to do it. There's a difference between thinking that like I think that they did something right and noticing that the power matters. And here's the thing: the reason I gave you that President Newsom hypo is that in a polarized country, in a like where we're at right now, where people are this fucking crazy with each other, you don't think the next time the Dems get power, they're going to pass some crazy motherfucking laws that could put you in jail for some shit that doesn't make any sense? You don't think the shoe's ever going to be on the other foot, and you're not going to be grateful that the people have to pass a common sense test? You're cool. Like 51% of the country is like, fuck it. You know what we're going to do? If you wear a hoodie with fire on it, straight to jail. That's the law.
Am I cool with that? No, I'm not cool with it. I'd move to a different country.
Okay, there you go, right? Like you go to a different country, presumably one where the government couldn't be tyrannical to you like that.
Right, but the putting the 12 jurors in there isn't what stops them from being tyrannical.
It sure as fuck is one of the that stops them. That's the whole point of it. That's why I asked you earlier, like, why do you think our founders did this? And the reason they did it is the whole Sixth Amendment. Everything in the Sixth Amendment is about the prevention of tyranny.
The
'Cause
founders also
there
thought
was some bad shit
bloodletting
happening in
was
England.
medicine. You know that, right?
Sure. They
Okay,
also
so
designed the
let's.
best system of government that ever existed. So, like
They wrote the
they weren't doctors,
Constitution
but
before fingerprints and blood and DNA existed. Do you understand
sure,
this?
Sure.
Right. So
But
this was a
but
different time. In modern
know
times,
what
we
you know
need
what did exist
professionals
then?
there.
You know what did exist back then? Tyranny. That's what existed back then. Fucking
It
tyranny.
still exists
And
now.
yes, and they were experts in it. They were experts in fighting it. They were experts in designing systems that are resilient to it. And the thing that they were most worried about was that in a democracy, the majority can become tyrannical very, very easily. It was their overarching concern. This is why we have the Electoral College, the Senate. This is why we have the Supreme Court. This is why we have the Sixth Amendment. This is why we have trial by juries.
Yeah,
These are
but this
all
is all just
devices to
why.
stop the majority from tyrannizing the minority. And I just don't think we should take that away. In fact,
This
as
is all
somebody who
why
often has
judges might
minority
be
opinions,
bad.
I like those protections.
This is all why judges might be bad, though, not why jurors are better. You
No,
you already conceded they're not better at fact finding, and I don't know what metric is more important in court than finding the facts.
okay. Let me put it this way. You're going to trial, right?
Yeah.
President Newsom is the president. You're
Yeah.
going to trial. Would you rather have 12 people from your community or 4 judges that President Newsom picked?
Did I do the crime or no?
Does it matter?
Yes, it matters.
Okay. Why? Go ahead. Tell me both then.
Because if I did the crime, I actually want the jury. That would be more chance for me to get out.
Mhm.
That's what would be smarter. Like if
Okay.
I'm a criminal, I would want to be talking to a jury. If you
Yeah.
put me in a room with 12 people, whatever I want the verdict to be, that's what it's going to be at the end of the day.
But I think the thing that you're assuming, which I don't think is a good assumption, is that the laws are always going to be good and fair and noble and virtuous. But laws are just creatures of men too. Men make them, political factions make them. They can be tyrannical, they can be unfair, they can be brutal, they can be oppressive. The giving the government the power to decide what the law is and the
Look
power
at
to
a jury
decide
of
whether to
white
charge
people
you
against a black person
and
they
the
don't like.
power to decide whether you're innocent or guilty. You're giving them all the powers. I'm saying we got to take at least one away from them so that if they come down on us and do tyrannical shit, we at least have an escape hatch. But you're giving them the full circle. You're giving them every single power. And I don't see how that doesn't open us up to getting crushed under their boot.
So this is just like a slippery slope. Judges might be bad, right?
No,
It's not.
it's
My
not a
point.
slippery slope. It literally already happened. That's why they
My
wrote in the
point
Declaration of
is
Independence that King George took away their right to jury, and that was such a deprivation of their liberty that they were justified in having a revolutionary war in part because of it. It's not like a hypothetical. It happened to them, right? He took away their right to jury, and they went to fucking war over it. It's not like a slippery slope. It's a historical fact.
that there was some bad people. But there's some bad jurors, right? We can go back and look at many times that jurors full of white people put black people in prison that shouldn't have been there, right?
Sure, the juries have made all kinds of mistakes.
So then what I don't understand. Where's
I don't
the
believe
check for that? You're
don't
okay with letting these random citizens get away with being tyrannical and being criminals?
There's a ton of checks for that. If you get convicted,
No,
you
there
can
isn't.
appeal. You can appeal the conviction. You can appeal the appeal. You can take that to the Supreme Court.
No, I'm
There's
talking
multiple.
about
There's
no,
multiple
no.
checks
I'm
on
talking
that.
about for the juror. There's
I
no
don't know,
accountability held on the juror.
why should there be?
He's making a life decision on somebody. What do you mean? Why should there be? Why shouldn't there be? You want to give him power with no responsibility? You want to give him all the responsibility and no
Okay,
accountabilities?
who would hold them accountable? Would it be the government?
Who holds everyone accountable?
Well, in your
When you
in
say
your
the government
you're
too,
saying
you're leaving out the fact that this is like democratically elected, right? I
sure.
don't want to take
Are
away
are you going to
everyone's
answer the question?
able to vote.
Are you going to answer the question? Who would hold the jurors accountable?
There
The
wouldn't be
government,
jurors
right?
in my system,
Okay, but you said that
but
the
there
jurors should be
should
held
be.
accountable. Who
Yes,
would hold them accountable?
the government. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit, juror did it bad, so we're going to punish him. That way the next juror will be less independent. You don't see a problem with this? You don't
What?
see if
Less independent.
yeah, okay, let's say I'll give you an extreme hypothetical to prove the point.
So we shouldn't punish them
Well,
now?
no, I'll give you an extreme hypothetical to prove the point. The jury has Kyle Rittenhouse case, right? The jury acquits him. Kamala Harris is president, and I know she thought he did it. So after the jury's over, she takes all the jurors out, she takes them to a wall, fucking shoots them, holding them accountable. They're all dead now. Then she says, "We're going to prosecute the next guy. You want to vote innocent? See what happened to the last jury?" Like, why would we want the government to hold juries accountable? We want the jury to be independent. We don't want them punishing fucking juries and making it like that they're going to be lessening the independence.
We
of the
take
jury.
away juries and they're going to start lining up people and shooting them. You're like,
No,
what a leap. That's
you're
just a
not.
leap. These are emotional
You're
appeals
not.
that you're
You're
doing
not
right here.
understanding the
Listen,
point.
if judges understand the
Can
law
you steel
better,
man the
they
point I'm making?
understand evidence better, they understand the procedure of the courts better, they understand forensic science better, all of the burden of proof better. Why are they worse at determining facts? That's my main point here.
I don't think they are
That's what's
worse at
important.
determining facts, but I think they are
Why do you put emotions over facts in the courtroom?
I'm not putting emotions over fact.
Yes, you are.
I'm putting the fact that there
You're
is
saying
a
what the
system
guys
in
what
place.
I think is unjust. I should be able to say no.
Speak easy. The issue that you're having that I feel like I'm just going to ask you to steel man it. Can you steel man my position? I'm not sure you understand it.
Yeah,
What is my
your
position?
your argument is ultimately that I like that jury nullification is there because if there's ever laws that I think are unjust, I want my people to be able to stop that from going through. That's what that is. That's what you want to be able. You want to give power to random citizens to nullify laws that they just don't like.
Okay.
So if you find a community of people that think, you know what, it's okay, we should be able to sleep with dead bodies and children. Well, guess what? They should be able to nullify all the people that go to court for that, right?
Okay. And
you believe that,
what,
right?
I
No,
guess,
you think they should be able to do that, right?
I don't think they should do that. And we have a lot
Why
of
not?
control.
No, not they should. They should be able
Speak
to.
easy. If you're going to ask a question, you have to let me answer the question.
All right,
If you're
but
just going
answer
to
the
talk
question
over
I'm
me,
asking.
then I'm going to let you go, and then
But
I'm going to ask
answer
the
the
moderator
question
to
I'm
give me time.
asking.
So, okay, ask your question, but then give me time to answer. Otherwise, I'm just going to do my thing. So, what's your question, brother?
Do you think a jury should be able to? They should be able to nullify PDFs from being charged.
It's better than the alternative, which is a tyrannical imposition by the government upon you.
That's
And
not the alternative.
The reason, I do hope the
That's a false
audience
dichotomy.
was paying attention when he gave his supposed steel man of my position, because he left out all the fucking key points, which is that I don't think juries are perfect. I think they do make mistakes. I think sometimes they nullify when they shouldn't, like in the O.J. Simpson trial. The point that I'm making here tonight is that jury nullification prevents the government from tyrannizing you. The problem that Speakeasy has is that he assumes that judges are not political creatures under political control, but they sure as fuck can be.
You assume
they sure as fuck can be.
No, you're the one here assuming a panel of 3 to 5 judges are all going to be the same political party, the same fucking stance, the same fucking morals. Yes, so could a jury. Like you're not giving anything for your side. That doesn't help your argument that they could be. That doesn't mean anything.
President Newsom.
That doesn't mean anything. The president could be an alien.
President Newsom is in power. He breaks the filibuster. They appoint 100,000 new judges. They could do it, by the way.
Move the fuck out of America. That's your first move.
Okay.
If he becomes president, you move the fuck out of the country.
So what you're saying, Speakeasy, is that your position is the system should be weakened. The protections that protect our liberties should be
Nope.
weakened such
Nope.
that if
How is it
a
weakened?
slim majority takes power, you have to flee the fucking country from the tyranny that they could do, and they could do it to you legally, brother.
Tell me
They
how a
could do
panel
it-
of
they
5
could do it to you
professionals is.
legally.
Tell
They
me
could-
how a panel of 5 professionals is weaker than 12 fucking random people.
Because they're
Tell me.
politically appointed. They're
So are
politically
people.
appointed.
So
They're-
no, not
jurors are
politically
not
appointed.
politi-
No, they wouldn't be politically appointed. No, they wouldn't.
course.
What are you talking about?
How do you think judges get appointed?
So okay, that's fair. You know what?
How do you
That's
how do
fair,
you think
because
we
I
get-
didn't
please
explain to
answer.
you my whole
How do you
system.
think we
No,
get
no,
judges?
no. That is how it is currently. I was talking about how I would do it.
It
but I'm
is how
not
it is
making that
currently.
argument.
Yeah.
Yes, it is how it is currently. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm
sure as fuck
I've had
is.
this argument enough times that I thought, I wasn't, I didn't explain to you that part of the system that I would implement. But I'm not here for that part. The part that you keep running away from is that the random 12 people are not better at finding the truth than 3 to 5 professionals.
The point, Speakeasy, that I'm going to keep saying it because you keep not acknowledging it, is that in our country, those 3 to 5 judges would be political appointees. They're political appointees. And the reason we have a jury is to prevent those political appointees from tyrannizing you by injecting the common person into the system. It's not because our founders thought these common people were fucking geniuses or like had read all the law books. Obviously, they haven't. It was to limit the government's power. So when you say, yeah, these judges are going to be great, maybe they will be great, but there's no requirement, Speakeasy. You don't even have to have a law degree to be a judge. The only requirement to be a
Are
judge in
jurors politically
is that
neutral, man?
No, but they're not politically
Okay,
appointed.
then like,
They're
so
not
then
politically
what? They vote, they watch CNN, they watch Fox
Speakeasy.
News.
What's the
like,
difference between appointed and
oh
neutral?
my
Do you
gosh.
tell me, what's the difference between being politically appointed and politically neutral? These are different concepts.
What is the matter? I'm asking you the point I'm making is that just because judges are political appointees doesn't automatically make jurors any less political.
It does not automatically, but we don't have
Right.
But judges
That's what I'm
already have.
saying.
Speakeasy.
So that's why I asked you, are jurors
Judges
political
already
neutral?
have. Judges already
Okay, so
have
you've identified
tremendous
a
power
potential
over the
source of
system.
bias in
What
judges.
you're
That's
trying to
amazing.
do is give them total power over the system. What I'm
Okay.
trying to do is have some check on that power. So no, there's no guarantee that jurors aren't politically or aren't biased. We do our best. We've tried to norm it the best we can. There's no guarantee, but they're not political appointees. They're not paid by the government. They're not political creatures. My concern, Speakeasy, is that when you give
Again,
the
you're
government
just
total
jumping to
control
conclusions from
over your
those
future,
statements.
yeah, I'm jumping to the conclusion that our founding fathers came to based on bitter experience
No,
that justified a
That's not the
revolutionary war.
conclusion I'm
That's
talking about.
the bitter experience of losing the right to a fair trial, the bitter experience of having biased judges and no right to a jury.
Dude,
By the
it's
way,
like you're acting like jurors ascend from heaven, free of ideology, free of prejudice and influence. They're human beings, just like the fucking judges, dude. What are you talking about?
I got to ask you, yes or no? Have I admitted that jurors
At least
are biased?
judges receive years of training.
Speakeasy. Have I admitted jurors are biased in this conversation? Yes or no? Have I admitted it?
Yeah, but then you
Oh,
jump
then
to.
what the fuck are you talking about?
But judges,
what
they're
is your speech
automatically,
about? If
they're automatically biased. That's the whole
You're
point.
straw-manning me with
You're
something
saying
that I've
jurors
actually
may
admitted
be
is true.
biased.
What-
No. You're saying jurors may be biased, judges
may be.
automatically.
No.
You give a lenient to the jurors and then you don't to the judges because they're politically appointed. So that means they're automatically gonna do some nefarious thing.
No, Speakeasy. I'm not saying all judges are biased. I'm saying that
You
because
just
they
said
are.
that
I'm saying that. Maybe just let me say what I'm saying. It'll be easy for you to hear. I'm saying that because they are politically appointed, they are an arm of the same government that decides what the law is and decides whether to charge you.
The
And
jurors weren't
If you give
biased.
the government, if you give the government power over what the law is, whether to charge you and whether you're guilty, then the government can decide to throw you in jail whenever the fuck they want. And I
You want to
think
know
that's
the
a bad
difference
thing.
between the judges and the panel of judges and the jurors? Right, the panel of judges would be random, right? Random, and they would just be appointed just because they're judges. They wouldn't be random. They wouldn't be specifically selected by a fucking lawyer that's trying to fucking convince them of their case. All right, that's not how it would be, and that's what it is with jurors. All right, don't act like the jury selection isn't fucking those lawyers trying to get the best fucking jurors for their side. Exactly. So they're literally looking for bias.
But
they're literally looking for bias.
You seem fundamentally confused about how criminal justice works. In our system,
yes, I'm fundamentally confused.
An adversarial system, meaning one lawyer tries to win for his side, the other lawyer tries to win for their side. So yes, you're right, Speakeasy.
So why don't they pick just 12 random people?
If you're going to say random shit, you got to let me figure it out. They do pick. They have a.
You're not even answering what I fucking said.
I'm attempting to answer. The juror pool comes from the community. They bring the jurors in. They have a process called voir dire.
I understand. Yes, voir dire. I understand this, dude.
You apparently don't.
I wanted to be a lawyer, bro. I wanted to be a lawyer.
Like only
I decided to be an asshole
has
instead.
to say. The defense counsel is trying to get the best jury
You're the
possible.
fourth lawyer I've debated on this topic.
Is trying to get the best. Is trying to get the best jury possible. They're both trying to do the best thing possible. Speakeasy for their side, but that's what an adversarial system is. We get to truth by the conflict between these two sides, not by the government deciding what's right or wrong, good or bad.
If that were the case, they wouldn't look for people specifically. They would just pick 12 random jurors, but that's not what it is.
Of course they would. Of course they would. Of course they would. Okay.
They would look for bias if they were trying to be unbiased.
I do juror selection. What I'm primarily doing,
right? And when you do that, you're primarily looking for the people you can sway.
No, I mean, I would love to do that, but my main job is to figure out who's biased for
the
other side
us,
and get rid of them. I'm trying to get rid of the people that are biased for the other side. And guess what the other lawyers do in Speakeasy? The same goddamn thing. But what you want is you want to have judges who are just straight up there doing politics instead.
No, I want them straight up doing law. Why do you keep bringing the politics into this? It won't matter. It won't matter if they're right wing, left wing. They have to do to the letter of the law. Okay,
really?
And yes, in your hypothetical. See, you talk while I talk, and then you get mad when I do it. In your hypothetical about the conservative meme, yes, sir, I understand that sucks, but guess what? You should go to fucking jail, and jury shouldn't be able to say no, right? So if you don't like the laws that you in the country you're in, you either vote to change them or leave the fucking country. There's a lot of ways and checks and power that doesn't involve putting one man's life on the line to 12 assholes that don't fucking care about him. That's bullshit.
A few points. The 12 assholes would have to unanimously convict him. It's actually hugely biased towards acquittal. So it's a check on government power. It's a check that you want to get rid of, by the way. And if you think judges are immune or just going to do the law, I wonder if would you be very happy about in my conservative meme hypo? You have a 3-judge panel of Justice Jackson, Justice Sotomayor, and
3
Justice
to 5.
Kagan.
Yeah. Depends on the severity of the case.
The 3 most liberal justices that we have, and they're there to decide whether or not you did misinformation.
This is such an easy fix. You keep bringing it up. I would make it. Then we would put in something that you can't have. It'd have to be a 50-50 political split. Then
how would you do that?
So for people like you that cry about politics so much,
so not only do
they're doing their job, it wouldn't matter what their politics are.
Not only do you need to get rid of the 6th Amendment, you need to get rid of the Appointments Clause too. Is there any other parts of the Constitution you want to gut today, Speakeasy, or is it just those
there's
ones?
lots that need to be changed. I think you'd agree with that.
I mean, I think it's better than it is worse. I think that
you want everybody to vote.
Not particularly, no.
Oh, why would you want to take away the checks on the governmental power from the people, sir?
How is that a check on governmental power?
being able to vote your president?
How's that a check on governmental power? That's
It's
the decision of who gets power. It's not a check.
Right.
Checks
It's
are
a decision on who
check,
gets
check,
the power.
checks are
And then
when
you
the
take
government
how
is
do you get them
prevented
out of
from
the
doing
power?
something it wants to do. You're
Okay,
describing how we
so
decide
then
who has power.
Then your example of the
not
juries
a
being a
check.
check on power isn't a check on power then.
It is
No, it's
obviously a
not.
check on
It's
power.
not actually. No, it's not.
Okay. The
It's
government
not
passes
because
the
it does,
No, no,
they
no,
don't
speakeasy,
they don't strike
speakeasy.
down the law. They just get one person off.
Yes,
That's
and
not fucking a check on power.
It
That's
is
just getting
speaking.
one
All
person
right.
off of the law. That's not a
Let
check
me
on power.
let me do the triangle for you.
Then lawyers are a
Congress
check on power.
Congress passes
So
a
we
law.
should just be fine with just
That's
the lawyers,
the
bro.
government up here passes a law. Then over here, government attorneys decide to charge you with a crime. And then over here, government judges in speakeasy system decide whether or not you're guilty and send you to jail. The check on power that the jury is that it's not all fucking government. Somewhere in there, the community
The
is inserted and they get a say.
The jury votes if that power of that or that crime that is being put on the guy, aka the political conservative meme guy, is not or is unjust. They don't like it. So they
Sure.
put a check on the power by not putting that guy in jail. They vote to not put that guy in jail, right?
Yes, that's a check.
Right.
That's a check
a
on
man
governmental
gets
power.
in power. Right. A man gets in power and into presidency that they don't like. Can you see where we're going with this? Voting for that president to not be there no more is a check on power, right?
No, it's not a check on power.
So
It's deciding
check,
who get.
one vote check. How does that work?
Because words have meaning, my guy. One is deciding who gets to wield power. The other is deciding whether or not power can be wielded at all, regardless of who has it. The First Amendment is a check on power. The Second Amendment is a check on power. Voting is deciding who gets the power. Those are different things. Is that I don't know if I can explain further if it's complicated, but that seems relatively clear.
If a jury votes to convict an innocent man because of politics or something like this, what check exists on the jury? None, right?
The appeal system.
That's not a check on
Yeah,
the
it is.
jury.
The jury votes to convict. You get the right to appeal, and if you appeal and win, then your conviction's overturned. You still have the judges, brother. They're not gone. You still have the judges.
So when
You just have
judges
the jury
abuse
too.
power, we also have appeals, right?
Yeah, and we have the
And
jury. We have multiple
oversight.
checks.
We have oversight, ethic boards, higher courts.
Yeah, there's multiple checks.
And when
But-
juries abuse power, we just hope they don't.
Yo, my guy, I'm conservative. I want as many checks on government power as possible. I don't trust the government at fucking all. I want the government to have to work for every goddamn
We already
conviction.
have
I want
better
them to have to
checks
work
than
for
juries.
every goddamn conviction. I think for the government to throw you in jail, it has to be fucking overwhelming that you're guilty. And yeah, I like the fact that they got to find 12 people from your community and convince them that you deserve to go to jail because I don't like fucking tyranny. I don't like
Yeah.
governmental intrusions of
Well,
power.
you do like
I
them,
like
right?
liberty.
You like
like
them
liberty.
because the Jim Crow juries were fucking tyranny. The segregation era juries were all tyranny.
Yo,
all the acquittals in racially motivated crimes, that's all tyranny. So you're okay with tyranny as long as it's not on somebody that has the title of government? Is that what it is?
Imagine thinking that judges in the Jim Crow South were going to be better than juries. Fucking imagine that. It was the Jim Crow South because the government was tyrannical, my guy.
Imagine jumping away
Because
from what
the
I just
government was
said.
tyrannical.
Imagine jumping away from what I just said to not address that there was tyrannical juries.
Real quick, gentlemen, the clock is up. Do you want 15 more minutes? No, it's okay. Do y'all want 15 more minutes?
I think we're good.
Think you're good? All right, cheers. Then in that case, we're going to go ahead and go into our closing arguments. 5 minutes is going to be on the clock for each of you guys. And this time we do have you're going to have 5 minutes for uninterrupted to close. And then after that, we're going to go into a Q&A session where I've got a couple of questions myself. The audience, or in this case, the jury, is also got a few questions they're going to throw at you guys. So again, 5 minutes is going on the clock for you there. Speakeasy, you're up first, sir. I'll start the clock when you start to talk.
Okay, I'm first.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, from what I've heard, for the most part, my opponent has asked you all to trust randomness, and I'm asking you to trust expertise. All right, that's what this debate is about. Now, we've heard a lot about, again, the founding fathers, government power, checks, tyranny, but notice something. We spent very little time explaining why 12 random assholes are actually better at determining facts than trained judges, because that's the resolution. Not whether judges can be imperfect. It's not whether a government can be dangerous. It's not whether the founders liked fucking juries. Don't give a fuck. They probably liked a lot of other shit I don't like. The question is simple. Who is better equipped to determine the truth? And when it comes to it, a trained judge who spent years studying law, identifying logical fallacies, evaluating evidence, applying legal standards, or some random citizen that was selected from a mailing fucking list. All right. My opponent warned you about the political judges, and I agree that judges can be political because we're human. We can all be political. Us here, on all three of us that you see on the screen right now, are political. Right? Jurors vote, jurors watch the news, they have their own biases, they have their own political opinions, right? The difference is that judges receive some type of training, oversight, appeals, review. There's accountability on them. Jurors do not. And when a judge makes a bad decision, there's record of it, and we fucking hold them accountable. There's reasoning, there's precedent, there's appeal, there's oversight. When a jury makes bad decision, we just get left with like, oh fuck, that's how did OJ get off with that? You know, why is Derek Chauvin in jail? We didn't even get to talk about the hundreds of Florida revisited cases because they gave jury trial. The jury was given improper instructions, so they had to revisit hundreds of cases because of juries. All right, we didn't even get into that. Again, when a jury makes a bad decision, there's nothing held on to them, all right? But America's greatest protection against government powers has never came from juries. That's what I wanted to get into. They've come from the courts, they come from the judges, they come from constitutional reviews, okay? A jury can't strike down any unconstitutional laws, they can't overturn any government actions, they can't invalidate legislation. All right. Even if they would have they could all say guilty, and the judge could say, actually, you guys didn't have sufficient evidence for that, so I'm not letting you guys go guilty. It's a fucking joke. The whole system of juries being there is a joke. You're not even actually allowed. You're supposed to have a right to a jury trial. You don't have that. So the whole system it's constitutional. It's a joke. And then what I also wanted to end off here is if we trust, again, I want to repeat this from my opening. If we trust experts to build our bridges, fly our airplanes, perform our surgeries, design the whole infrastructure, why do we suddenly reject expertise when deciding whether someone loses their freedom or not? Why is the courtroom one place where competence becomes suspicious and, oh my gosh, he's political? My opponent's position ultimately requires you to believe something very simple, that when the stakes are the highest, expertise matters less. And I reject this entirely. And at the beginning of this debate, I asked the simple question, who is better equipped to determine the truth? After everything you've heard tonight, I believe the answer remains obvious. Not 12 strangers, not 12 amateurs, professionals. All right. And for that reason, I affirm you all, or urge you all to affirm that juries should be made up of judges, not peers. All right, thank you very much. And as contentious as this gets, all right, I still love you, Ryan. No hate over here, bro.
And that's what we love to hear. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and go over to you, Ryan. 5 minutes is on the clock for an uninterrupted closing from you. I'll start the clock when you start to talk.
Yeah, I love you, brother. We're doing the debate thing. It's all good. But I'm going to say that, and now I'm going to fucking give you the business. So all love, but here we go. It's real funny hearing a trust the expert argument from a conservative, That's real fucking funny to me. I've never heard a trust the experts argument from a conservative. I guess it's the first time for fucking everything. But there's a bunch of stuff he said that's just wrong. So I'm just going to knock that stuff out so that we can get to the point. Yes, you do have a right to jury trial for criminal charges that have a conviction of 6 months or more. You don't have it for lesser offenses. Civil charges are different, but we were talking about felony convictions today mostly. So yes, you do have a right to jury trial. He talked about a problem in Florida where there were improper instructions, which required revisiting a number of court cases. Improper jury instructions are given by the judge. When there's improper instructions, that's because the judge fucked up. So he's just pointed out an example of when judges mess something up, which they do. And look, judges in a system with our jury system intact, judges have tremendous power. They control the courtroom. They decide what evidence comes in. They rule on the objections by the lawyer. They decide the motions. They decide the appeals. They can decide to strike a juror if the juror is biased. They have tremendous power within the courtroom. But what Speakeasy wants to do is give them total power in the courtroom. And we shouldn't do that because it is appropriate for us to have the role of the people inside of the criminal justice system. Ironically, Speakeasy made the argument that because it's pro-democracy to take the people out of the courtroom. It's pro-democracy to have the experts decide who's guilty and innocent. It's anti-democratic, according to Speakeasy, to allow the community a role within the criminal justice system. Very, very strange. And remember, when you're charged with a crime, if one juror votes to acquit, you can't be convicted. Just one juror, right? To convict you, they need to convince all 12 people to send you to jail. That is a massive check against governmental power. Is it possible for jurors to convict people incorrectly? Of course, it's happened. I wouldn't deny it. Jurors can be biased. There's tons of problems with bias for all people, including judges. But ultimately, the only requirement to be a federal judge in this country isn't, you don't have to go to law school. They do typically, but you don't actually need to have a law degree. We've had Supreme Court justices with no law degree in this country. The only requirement to be a federal judge is that the president nominates you and the Senate confirms you. That's it. The entire process, top to bottom, is decided by politics. Because it's decided by politics, our founders wisely decided that there needs to be a check against political power wielded by the government that could lead to you being literally in chains, literally spending the rest of your life in jail. The community should have a role. The people should decide whether that's just or unjust. So I'm going to end where I began. The Declaration of Independence listed many problems of the tyrannical English government, and one of them was that it deprived us, in many cases, of the benefits of trial by jury, an imposition of tyranny so severe that it justified revolution. This is why the Sixth Amendment exists. This is why Thomas Jefferson said, "I consider trial by jury as the only anchor ever yet imagined by man by which a government can be held to the principles of its constitution." This is why John Adams said, "Representative government and trial by jury are the heart and lungs of liberty. Without them, we have no other fortification against being ridden like horses, fleeced like sheep, worked like cattle, and fed and clothed like swine and hounds." I love Speakeasy, but he would like you to be ridden like horses, fleeced like sheep, worked like cattle, and fed and clothed like swine and hounds. Because according to Speakeasy, the government should decide what the laws are, the government should decide whether to charge you with a crime, and the government should decide whether you are guilty of the crime, because it's government employees at every aspect of the triangle of criminal justice. All I'm saying is that injecting the people into that, saying that no, before you can send me to jail, you have to convince my peers that it's just. This is a check against tyranny. And you know what? Some guilty people go free because of it. I admit it. I think it's true. But what I'm more concerned about is a tyrannical government. And as a red-blooded American, you should be too.
Right. There you go. All right, that's another one in the books. Thank you both, gentlemen. That was absolutely amazing. Very passionate in a couple of places, and I hope that I hope everybody was able to hear all of the arguments and be able to follow along. So, that said, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link. I sent you both in your DMs a copy of the link to the poll, so you can put it into your own streams and chats. That's in the Discord DMs. I'm also going to drop it into all of my different platforms really quickly so that people can go ahead and get started voting. You guys are going to have probably about 20 minutes to vote, plenty of time. We're going to go ahead and just sort of, we've got some questions coming in from the chat. I've got a couple of questions myself. So we're just going to kind of go back and forth and sort of keep going off the timer to see what if we can keep persuading the audience. So that said, I'm going to start with you, Easy, and I'm going to do kind of an easy one for you, no pun intended. So at one point in the debate, you made the comment, whenever you brought up the Kyle Rittenhouse and Ryan pounced on it, you made the comment that you had like 12 more. If you don't mind just rattling off those 12 real quick, I'd like to hear those other cases if you've got those ready and accessible. You are muted again, my friend.
Yeah, I do have it. I have a list here prepared. Let me get to it here.
Yep. Like I said, no timer on this part. We're just.
But
yeah,
there's Bill Cosby. Obviously, you guys know. I can name a couple off my head. I can remember Bill Cosby.
You mentioned O.J.
Curtis
Simpson.
Flowers. Obviously, O.J. Simpson's a big one, right? Curtis Flowers, Derek Chauvin, Karen Reed. This is another. Walter Scott. That's over 100 convictions. That Florida jury instruction thing I brought up. That's over 100 convictions that had to be either reversed or revisited due to the faulty jury instruction. And even if you say, oh, well, that's the fault of that judge, sure, but we wouldn't have been depending on a jury that got secondhand instructions if we didn't have the jury. That's why I brought that up.
Just so I can be like super good faith.
Yeah,
juries do fuck up. So like I just want to admit, like, juries are not faultless. They do fuck it up.
Definitely acknowledge that during the debate too. So
but to point this out, Cosby, I don't know what your problem is with the Bill Cosby situation. Is it that he was that he's
the
not
first
in jail?
trial ended in mistrial because he was a TV guy. That's what I'm saying. That in modernity, this is a problem.
Do you know why? Do you know why? Do you know why he's not in jail now?
All right.
Because he was convicted. He's not in jail now because of a violation of a prosecution agreement, and his conviction was overturned by a judge. So I mean, like the reason he's not in jail.
Hold on, Mr. Mullally. If it was a judge that overturned it, it seems like that kind of argues in favor of Easy's position, right? But okay,
no.
Well, okay.
I mean, I can answer that if you want. My point isn't that we should have only juries. My point is that having juries in the system along
is still
with
useful.
Judges is better than having only one.
Do you believe in modernity that Tyler Robinson is getting a fair trial by jury?
I'm not sure what you mean by fair. Like, do you mean perfect?
Fair.
I mean,
as in impartial.
When his wife went on in front of millions of people, and literally Charlie Kirk's wife has already convicted this guy as the killer before he's convicted as the killer. Do you think he's getting a fair trial in 2026 America?
I think he's going to get the fairest trial that he would get in any criminal justice system in the world. We have the best one. It's not even close. We have the best one. It's not even close. That doesn't mean it's perfect. It doesn't mean it's perfect. But there's a lot that you can do.
This is a problem with the jury. That's why I hate the idea of a jury where people can just get off because people like them or they don't like a law. So they're like, let's let this guy off.
But even with Tyler Robinson, to convict him, you're going to have to convince 12 people he did it. That's real tough. It's real hard to convict people in this country.
People who are happy that Charlie Kirk died and the people that are sad Charlie Kirk died all believe it was this kid. You understand that, right?
Sure. And I think if the government,
I
can
think
prove
it's
it,
going to
he
be
should go to
very
jail.
easy to find 12 jury members that
Well,
want to convict him. I
I
think
mean,
I can
by the
throw a
way,
rock out
I
my
think
window and find 12 people that are gonna.
I think he did it, and then it's going to be pretty easy to convict someone who did it of the crime they
But that
did.
should be
Yeah,
done based off evidence only, right?
no, I think that there's, I think the role of the people in
So
this
people's
process is
emotions.
critical.
Why though?
I guess
Why
like
do people's emotions matter when it comes to the
it's
fact?
no, what
It is
the
though.
things that you keep coming back to this emotion thing, and it's
We should have left
It
the
is.
15 minutes on the
It's a
clock,
thing
just so you know.
It's a thing I literally never said. So
You
I
don't
guess-
have to say it. You don't have to
No.
say it. You said
Speak
if
easy.
there's a
What-
law
what
that they
was your
don't
argument?
like, if there's a law that I don't like, I like the fact that we have the power to say no.
Speak easy. What was
That's
my argument?
emotional.
What was my argument?
I just repeated it.
You did not.
You
It wasn't even
said
close.
you like the fact that if there is something that you think is an unjust law, that we have juries that can stop the judge from convicting the person of this unjust law. It's emotional.
It's not emotional. It's
It is.
it's a structural check against tyranny. It's a
Who decides
rational
what's
check.
just?
It's a we do. That's who decides. We
The
do.
collective?
We, the people, the American people. That's who decides who's just in this country. Speak easy. Ironically,
Everybody?
ironically,
But you don't
in
want
your
everybody
aim
to
to be
vote.
democratic, you're attempting to take the people out of the system, which is very strange. But Horvath, you said you have more questions.
Oh, I do. I'm enjoying this.
I
So
would
the
agree
questions
with
are
you
supposed to
like
spur this, so I don't
democracy.
mind this
I don't like
happening.
democracy that much. To be
Why are
honest
you
with you.
appealing to it?
Because you do, because you like democracy.
No, what I don't like
You
is
brought up
tyranny.
the founding fathers and why did they want the juries and everything, and this
Well,
is
actually,
democratic.
I mean, our founding fathers were like allergic to the tyranny of the majority. One of the
Ooh,
great misconceptions.
good thing you asked that.
The thing that pisses me.
Hold on. I'm sorry. That's awesome that you said that, because I was going to ask you one of the questions. The literally next question I was going to ask was, how is jury trial not representative of the tyranny of the majority? You were saying that that the jury's supposed to be standing against the tyranny of the government, but you're now putting it in the hands of the citizenry, or again, whoever the majority consensus is. How is it not representative of the tyranny of the majority?
Because let's say you live in Texas, right? 51% of the country decides that one political party, let's make them the Democrats, but it could be either, is in power.
Yeah.
And in Washington, D.C., they decide what's legal and what's illegal. And then they charge you with a crime. But people in Washington, D.C., and 51% of the national part, the country, might think pretty differently than your community in Texas. But to send you to jail, they've got to convince 12 people from your community that you deserve it.
So
right?
it's a tyranny
And
of a
that's the
smaller
check.
majority, basically?
Well, it's all about checks, right? You're going to have your community checking the national community, and the joy of federalism. And if
And
you're
if
a
your community
conservative,
don't like
the joy-
you, shit out of luck, kid.
The joy of limited government is that you want to push the decision making down to the local level, and you want to avoid national politics where the government is maximally likely to
Do
be
you
tyrannical.
think?
Well,
Do you think I want to worry about what some 12 people look at me and think of me when they're deciding on my shit, or do you think I care more about the facts? And I want a fair trial because I only want the facts to put me in jail or not.
well, easy to respond
You
to that.
want-
Wouldn't you
you
like
want
people
me
that
to be
look
put
like
in
you
front of
on that
people
jury?
That are gonna automatically assume because of my face tattoo and my fucking beard that I'm a criminal of some sort, and they're gonna look to convict me before they've even heard the case.
Easy, wouldn't you like it if you were in that jury
if you have a
box?
lawyer who's shitty at jury selection.
Yeah, I was about to say, wouldn't you like it if you were sitting on that stand, you turned around and everybody in your jury box looked like you, had facial tattoos and a beard? Wouldn't that make you feel a little bit more like you were going to be judged on
No.
the facts?
First off,
Not just
I've
the
seen
bias?
enough judges already. I've seen enough judges in law enforcement that have tattoos like crazy now. So
Yeah,
in
that's what I'm
modernity,
saying.
again, that's
Yeah,
not a.
exactly.
but-
They're more common.
I don't understand why we look at these juries and think, well, this is a check, but we don't look at a panel of judges and say, well, they have to put checks on each other too. Like, don't you see that? How do you just ignore that fact?
Because the judges already exist in the system. Like, as a group, the judges are already present in the criminal justice system and wield overwhelming power. So to the extent the judges are a check, they already are one. But now there's a second check, which is the jury, and you want to remove that one. So yeah, I think 2 checks is better than 1.
All right, so real quick, easy. I got a question for you now. Well, and it's sort of like the same one. It's sort of like the first one, insofar as you mentioned something that I want to give you the chance to actually explain. You had said something that you had a hypothetical judge selection system different from the one we currently have. You didn't actually get the chance to tell us what it was. What is, in your mind, a better judge selection system?
Okay, so because with this, I've been working on abolishing jury trials as an argument for like years now.
Sure.
Right. So my system, there would be you would have to have, first off, you would have to have some type of like legal expertise, right? And you would be voted in by a committee, right? So it wouldn't be that there's people appointing you. There wouldn't be, and then we would have a check of that judge isn't just getting one type of case, right? Like they're not staying in one place getting one type of case with the same panel of judges. They're rotated, right? So this grouping that you're talking about that they already have, they're on the in. That's not happening.
So you would almost be talking about creating a whole new group, which would be like trained jurors, because you would still have a judge who sits on the bench and is overseeing the proceedings, but then you would have trained jurors that don't have to necessarily be all the way up to a full-blown judge sitting on the panel for decision.
Yeah. So you would have 3. So like, say you have like a standard felony, you'd have a 3-judge panel. And then you have like a major felony, murder. I don't know what you guys can say on Twitch, but all them crazy shit, right? You'd have a 5-judge panel, right? So then, the reason that you would have it like this too is because you guys talk about corruption with judges. It's probably harder to. Would you agree that it's harder to corrupt 5 judges, Ryan?
It's not corruption necessarily that was worrying me. Corruption,
bias.
Sorry, I take corruption to mean like bribing and like that sort of thing. My concern would be more something like the following: President Newsom gets in power and he gets the Senate, and they pass a law, and the law says to be on the committee, you can't be on the committee if you don't believe in climate change, and you don't think that COVID lockdowns were a good idea,
or if you don't sign a loyalty agreement.
Yeah, like, what I mean? Like the committee becomes, because it's a government function, the government has control of the committee. The committee then becomes impartial and becomes a political agent, because that's what the government inevitably does. It's not even corruption. It's totally legal. It's just the government takes charge of the committee.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, so my selection would be my
selection process.
It wouldn't be like the I guess appointment system would be like, again, you'd have to have requirements, some type like law degree, some minimum years, maybe an ethics review, and then there would be a periodic retention votes, right? So they're not going to vote for you to go in, but they're going to vote if you're going to stay, right? And this is how the people can have a check on corrupt judges. Right? If there's a judge that seems like they're doing some fuckery, when that retention vote comes around, they can get that judge out of there, right? So, like, my system is to remove the random peer juries and replace it with multi-judge panels, right? And like, there would be mandatory written verdicts, automatic review for any serious convictions, there would be a citizen accountability commissions, right? Like, there would be a bunch of anti-corruption safeguards that we have in place. We have in place already. And yes, I would want to do a constitutional amendment, right? For the 6th Amendment, I would just simply change it to trial by impartial judicial panel. Right, that's instead of trial by jury, it'd be trial by impartial judicial panel. The 7th Amendment would be civil judicial panel rights. Simple.
All right.
And then I guess you'd also have to change the way judges are appointed, I'd assume.
Right, that's what I was saying. So it'd be instead it'd be a merit selection. So again, they would have to have the requirements, and then
like a sheriff, basically. You'd be
Right.
Yeah,
voted
see,
democratically to be who is a judge.
see, my problem is, man, I'm so deep down the rabbit hole on this shit where, like, as a lawyer, like the deeper I go down these like impartial panels and this whole shit, every time I do it, it turns out they're political because they're governmental organizations. They're always fucking political. It's like in New
Yeah, but I
York,
would want
they,
like an
they
independent,
in New
like
York they
judicial
had
commission.
that's what I'm saying. Speaking in New York, they had a nonpartisan, impartial district drawing commission, right? And they were supposed to draw all the districts perfectly and not gerrymander. Turns out they were gerrymandering for the Democrats. And then when they weren't gerrymandering enough, the Democratic legislature said, fuck the commission and just put in their own map anyway. Like it's the problem is, like, at the end of the day, government is about partisan power. So like I just
So how about this? Think of it
personally
like
I
this,
don't
right?
believe you can avoid that. You gotta
Well,
all you can do is
think of
check
it
it.
like this. You have like a hiring board, okay? The members would include retired judges, defense attorneys, law professors, citizen representatives. Their job would be to find the most qualified candidate, okay? Then the requirement would have to be like law degree, 10 years legal experience, no misconducts, shit like this. Then the government would select from a short list, not just anybody, and then only from the commission approved candidates. And then we would have retention elections every fucking 6 years. The citizens vote. Do we keep the judge or no? Right? There's no opponent, no campaigns, no fucking political parties around it. It's, do you want to keep the judge? Yes or no? And then they do that. Simple. Right? Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong with that?
Well, I mean, I got a bunch of stuff.
But
One,
if
like,
you try to keep them kind of quick for me, just
Sorry,
because we do
sorry,
stuff. No, it's
sorry.
okay.
I know,
Nope, I'm
cranky
loving it.
up.
I just
Yeah.
we do have some more questions. So, but go ahead. Yeah, what's
try to
wrong
be
with it?
quick. One of which is that we don't have enough judges for that. So you'd have to have a massive amount of new judges, and the quality of judges is going to go down as you have to bring more and more of them into the system. So there's a practicality issue there. Two, I don't trust commissions to be impartial over time. They become political over time, but I already said that, so I don't want to like beat the dead horse there. Three, in states that elect judges, and many states elect their judges rather than having them be political appointments, what you actually see is that, for example, in states that like are harsh on crime states where judges get elected because they run on being tough on crime, in election years, they give the death penalty more than they do otherwise because they're trying to get elected, so they kill more people than they would have. Not because of the facts, because they're politicians. They're trying to win an election. Similarly, in jurisdictions that are like soft on crime, that have elections, in election years, judges are super lenient with their sentences. So like the problem is ultimately you can't escape politics. You can't escape bias. All you can do is design systems that check power, because that way, when the bias shows up, you have an escape hatch.
All right, and that's twice now that you have given me the perfect fucking setup and segue, so I appreciate that. The next question was for you, Ryan. So you're talking about how we have, the checks. One of the checks you mentioned was our ability to appeal the jury's decision, right, or the outcome of a trial. But in appellate courts, if I'm not mistaken, the last level, the end boss, so to speak, is the Supreme Court, who is a panel of judges. If the jury trial is the best option, or I know you weren't advocating for exclusively jury trials, but if it is the superior form of trial, why would that not be the end game result for the appeals court?
Well, this is a little bit of a common misconception.
Okay.
Let's say you go to trial, right? You're acquitted. There is no appeal. The case is over.
Sure. Yeah. If you're acquitted,
right?
you're done.
There's no.
Yeah.
So the appeals are only to the benefit of the defendant, who can then try again and again and again to get out of jail, right? So the whole system is designed to check government power. If the jury says you're innocent, you're done. No more trial. If they say you're guilty, then you have multiple levels of judges double checking if the jury was right. So like I like that. I like that in our system, the defendant, who's the one who's going to have to go to jail and spend the rest of his life doing fucking hard labor, has multiple opportunities to check the government's power. I just don't want to take one away, right? I have no problem with the fact that the defendant can appeal. That's fine.
All right, cheers. All right, now now we actually are finally getting to those are all just my questions. Now we get to go to the chatters.
Brother, you got to make your money.
No, I know. Well, I was letting as many come in as possible. So, all right. So the first question here is going to be, and this is to you, Easy. Wouldn't a smaller pool of known people?
Most questions are probably that.
Actually, no. Is one of each for y'all. Funny enough, so far from the chatters. Wouldn't a smaller pool of known people, judges, make them more susceptible to corruption than a randomized group of unknown citizens? In other words, like if we are talking about corruption insofar as bribery or direct persuasion and coercion, would a smaller panel of easily targeted judges be easier to corrupt than a random person off the street?
Yeah, sure. You could say that like a smaller group can be easier to target individually. That's true, right? But the question isn't whether a smaller group can be targeted. The question is whether corruption is easier to detect, right? A judge leaves written opinions, public record, that we can investigate them, they can be appealed, can be removed. A juror, they deliberate in secret, right? And they leave no reasoning to why they did it, and they disappear after the verdict. They just get off scot-free, and you know, the dude who murdered his wife and her boyfriend walking around scot-free out here, you know? That's
Okay.
a problem.
All right. Cheers.
But yeah, a corrupt judge leaves evidence, a corrupt juror doesn't.
So basically, the jurors
just
are held
leave
to
a
less
verdict.
scrutiny. Is the summary there? Word.
Yeah.
All right.
The flip side is you wouldn't even know which juror to corrupt. I mean, like if you were trying to like stack a jury pool, you wouldn't even know who to bribe.
I don't know, man.
because,
I've
you know,
seen
like,
I
movies.
just have to
It
be
looks
in the
really
room,
easy in
bro.
the movies.
Yeah,
I just gotta be in the room. I'm telling you.
We did a like when I was at Clerken, we did like a 3-month criminal trial, and because it was a really high profile case, it was in the news a lot. It was one of like the Nate Silver like government corruption cases in New York. So because it was so high profile, we brought in like hundreds of jurors, and we had them fill out like a 40-page questionnaire. And then people were eliminated by the questionnaire, and that got down to like 50. And
Doing
then
a
those
fucking
got brought into the
scales for
courtroom.
your jury? Jesus Christ.
Well, but I mean, the reason that the judge and the prosecution and the defense wanted to have this huge process is because it was such a political case. They were trying to get like a huge number of people and narrow it down through different methods, including a written. You don't do that for most cases,
Sure.
the questionnaire. But
Sure.
like, if you were trying to bribe jurors, you wouldn't even know where to start, man. We had like 500 people in the courtroom that day trying to work through this process, right? And that was from a random selection pool. That's the entire population of adults in New York City. So, you know, it's a very tough thing to do.
All right, so just so you know, chatters, when that clock above my head goes out, that's when we're going to look at the votes. So please make sure that you get those votes locked in. I'm going to drop that link in the chat one more time. So you got about 6 more minutes, and you also have about that time to drop any more questions in the tip jar. So the next question was for you, Ryan. If there was a point that the jury was the only point of the tyranny, won't the laws be changed to also outlaw the jury? There are many dominoes that would have to fall, and juries won't have any power at that point. I'm going to read that again because it was worded a little funny, and I want to make sure I tracked it. If there was a point that jury was the only point out of tyranny, I assume that means against tyranny. Then wouldn't the laws be changed to also outlaw the jury? So I think what they're saying is that if the jury is how we prohibit tyranny, but we could still achieve tyranny by outlawing juries, couldn't we?
Yeah, so this is why it's in the Constitution. That in order to get rid of the juries, you would have to amend the Constitution. And the reason that amending the Constitution is so difficult is it makes it so that, you know, you would have to have a supermajority in the House, in the Senate, and then you'd have to have a supermajority of states all agree that this is a good thing to do. And it makes it very, very difficult to do. Now, of course, in theory, you could amend the Constitution to say anything. You could amend the Constitution to not be have a Constitution, right? So if you had enough political will, then yeah, you could do anything tyrannical. All we can do is create systems that prevent it the best we can. And because I'm on my soapbox, that's why you should get out there and reject anybody, especially the Democrats right now, who are talking about packing the court because that is an end around the constitutional amendment process and is a direct threat to your liberty and an imposition of tyranny. That's just my soapbox issue. But yeah, so yeah, it's theoretically possible, but it's practically extraordinarily difficult.
Okay, and so the next is not really directed at a question per se, but apparently the question is the chat wants to know if they can just nominate me to be the judge, easy, and I'm going to go ahead and make the decision instead of them. Is that all right with you?
I prefer that.
Yeah, cheers, right? No, but actually,
I would prefer the jury.
Yeah, I do have one more question for you, Easy.
Bet you would.
Do you believe that judges should also be involved in tort law? Do you believe that judge panel should be the ones who choose tort and or civil cases as well?
Yeah, well, it would depend what it is. I think one judge could be good enough for some of those, right? It would depend exactly what it is with like civil and whatnot, right?
Sure.
But yeah, like there would be cases that one judge would be just fine, right?
Okay. What about you, Mullally? I know that you're an actual attorney. What are the cases that are most likely to have just a bench trial? And do civil and or tort law, would they benefit from jury trials?
So federally, you have if a party wants a jury trial, they can typically get it for civil cases, though there are exceptions, and that's a little bit more complicated. But let's ignore that for now. I did a bench trial in bankruptcy court last year, where the judge is just going to write the opinion. But the reason it was a bench trial is that both parties preferred a bench trial in that case. So neither of us wanted a jury trial. We could have had a jury trial if we wanted it. And then in the place where you're very likely to get that is in state courts, because in state courts they often have different rules than federal courts, which are much more jury centric. And then keep in mind, the vast majority of cases don't go to trial. So like in the criminal context, I think 2% of cases go to trial. Most of them are pled out earlier or resolved in some other way. So it's a small percentage that go to trial. I don't know if that's helpful, but yeah, there's room for bench trials in the civil context, but it's not necessarily the case.
Okay. Yep. There you go. It does indeed answer the question. So I still have like a fucking full page of notes, but I'm gonna go ahead and just keep those for my own to read and research on my own later. I would like to use this last minute and a half here to say thank you both again for showing up tonight. I'm going to drop your links both into the chat one more time, so everybody out there who's just now tuning in and may have missed it at the beginning can go ahead and give a click and a sub. But one more time, if you guys don't mind, since the voters are voting, let's go ahead and have you guys tell us one more time who you are and where people can find you. We'll start with you, Easy.
Yeah, I go by Speakeasy. It's spelled EAZY at the end. All right, and I said Zed because yes, I was born in Canada. But I'm a dual citizen. All right, for all you pussies in the chat that keep saying he's Canadian, I voted for Trump too, pussies. All right, so fuck you. Anyways. I run the most entertaining blood sport debate panel on YouTube, okay, every Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time to 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And we have a prize every week. If it doesn't get given out, it gets rolled over. Prizes up to $1,200 right now. So if you want to come compete this Friday, try to win some money. There's some big bucks on the line. We're doing a live verbal combat in Dallas, Texas, around the time of DebateCon as well coming up. So lots of good shit we got going on over there. Big shout out to you, Horseradish, for having this go on and hosting this. And thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the back and forth.
Appreciate you. All right. And Mr. Mullally, same thing for you. If you would tell the folks one more time who you are, where they can find you, I'll drop your link in the chat.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm Ryan Mullally. I'm an attorney. You can find me at Natural Law with Ryan Mullally, where I do law, politics, and founding American philosophy primarily, and hopefully soon participating in some dope content on Speakeasy's channel, because how did we not connect before tonight? I also, co-host the greatest law and politics show in the country, Law and Order, and also shout out on Speakeasy's channel, Nor Prep Debates, which are fucking hilarious. If you want to see Rob have to argue a position that he has no idea what it's going to be until the last second, that's funny as fuck. So that's a good thing to check out. But yeah, follow me on YouTube and X, and really appreciate you having us on, Horseradish, as always.
Again, the honor is
real
all mine,
quick too.
gentlemen.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I just have to do this because this guy goes around and talks so much shit. To Razillusion in the chat saying I argue like a liberal. I would like you to go tell everybody in the chat how you said women should be in the military because women are in the military. Go work that argument out again, you feminist little bitch. Shut your dumb ass up.
The funny thing is, everybody in my chat thought Mullally was a Democrat. I had to explain to them, no, these are both conservatives. So apparently, you guys both code blue. Weird.
Their radar's not off. I voted Democrat like almost my entire life. It was only when I went to law school, because I kind of lived in a I was raised Democrat. I was in this kind of bubble, and I didn't know what like intellectual conservative thought looked like. And then I went to law school and started reading Justice Scalia, and I was like, oh wait, no, he's right about everything. What do I do now? So then, 10 years later, now I'm on the right. But
cheers.
It was just it was a bubble burst for sure.
That is funny. And real quick, another thing about what Speakeasy was saying, he's not wrong. For what it's worth, Verbal Combat is the only blood sports panel that I personally promote and or like push people towards. Anytime somebody comes to the DMZ and thinks that that they're getting blood sports, it's like no. Let me tell you about a dude named Easy. All right. So he's not wrong. It is the most entertaining blood sports panel on the internet. So, all right, without any further ado, gentlemen, let's go ahead and crack this egg open and see what's inside. It looks like we've actually never had this many votes on the DMZ. I'm fucking stoked to see it. So I'm glad your panel or your chats actually did vote. Let's see if either of y'all's chatters voted against you.
My chat all came to vote against me. Don't
yeah,
worry.
no, I hear you. That's the curse of hosting this shit, right? All right, so drum roll.
They always disagree with me, bro.
It is close. All right, so it is 70-30. I mean, I guess close-ish. 70-30 is the final tally. 56 votes versus 23 votes. So it is 70-30 is the rounded total in favor of the negative. Mr. Mullally is the one who takes home the gold tonight. Thank you again to all of tonight's debaters, and above all, thank you to all of the viewers. We wouldn't be here without you. The DMZ happens live on Twitch, YouTube, and Kick every Friday and Saturday night, so make sure and follow, like, and subscribe so you will get notifications when we go live. And if you haven't already, join the free Discord server where we take the conversations after the lights go off and the cameras go away. That is where you can tell me if you are interested in participating in these debates. I am the Horseradish, and we hope to see you guys for the next round here in the DMZ.